come back from war and you're expected to be around everybody who's happy and smiling when you're just a ball of anger. In 2006, I decided I wanted to be a cop because of that police officer who took care of me that night that my mom crashed a snowmobile. He was such a good person to me, and he was so nice to me, and he made me feel better. He came and checked on me multiple times afterwards. I liked the fact that he was there to protect me, and I felt that protection from him. You know, my fastest route to becoming a cop would be to join the military, and in my thoughts, I would be a cop in the military and then get out and become a cop here. I was a cop at 19. I got back to my first duty station, and I didn't even do my job before they sent me on my first deployment. And we were part of the Scorpion 1-5, and so we went out, and our job was to do route clearance. My whole job was to find the bombs before they. It's pretty obvious what happens. I was the lead gunner, so I was the first one in charge. So I was 20 years old. My whole job was to make sure my team didn't die. There was a lot of stressful days out there, a lot of times where I just sit there and watch my teammates walk out to check to make sure something wasn't an IED, knowing that there could be secondaries, knowing that they could step on a mine any second. 6 months straight of literally looking for bombs, and your heightened sense of awareness is up. You're in the fight or flight mode constantly. You get back from deployment, and everybody's happy. You know, everybody's just happy you're home. Everybody's living their life, and you get back and you just hate it. You hate it. Every single second of being home, I hated when I was in the military, because I kept thinking about, I have people overseas and I'm here. I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. And you become focused on being deployed because you know when you're overseas, you have a mission, and the mission that you have is life or death. And if you don't do it correctly, people die. But when you're at home, you feel like you're doing nothing. You feel like you're wasting your life. So I went back 9 months later to Iraq, in northern Iraq. That deployment was rough for me because I was law enforcement. So I would drive around and we'd have to respond to certain calls. And there was a lot of suicides on that.
Welcome to Homefront Sit Rep. I hope you're in for a great show today, because I'm just a veteran talking about what's on my mind and maybe yours.
You can find Homefront Sit Rep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also check out Homefront Sit Rep's YouTube channel.
Buckle up, the show is starting. Welcome everybody to a Sunday edition of Homefront Sit Rep. How is everybody doing? Miss Candace, how are you up there in Minnesota? Or no, you're in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Come on, wrong state.
I know, right? I was there. How are you doing up there?
I'm great.
How's the veterinary clinic up there working out for you? No? Let's move on. We'll skip that one. All right.
Yeah,
How's the weather? How's the weather up there?
well, it got better. Like there's still snow on the ground, and there's a gorgeous sky with a gorgeous moon and stars, and the weather's beautiful.
Nice.
Cold,
How was your weekend?
Good. It was busy.
You had to think about it there for a minute.
Well, no. So it's like I'm trying to keep personal things personal, and
There you go. There you go.
I can't talk about that.
There you go.
but
What's up,
no,
Rick
no,
James?
no, I can talk about it. It's just no, things are good. Like I definitely missed some of the things that I was involved with there, and so I'm happy to be on here tonight.
Yeah, you need to get Mission 6 up and running up there. Your veteran charity that you run up, that you started here, which was formerly known as Up to Snuff, and now Mission 6. And
I'm working on some stuff. I got my hands in a couple of places already. I have a meeting with a lady actually tomorrow night to sit down and talk about a nonprofit that she runs and some things about getting my hands out there in the community. So I got some fillers out there.
Well, speaking of that, the guest that we got coming on today, he helps veterans start nonprofits, help veterans starts LLCs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead without further ado, bring on the founder of Warriors Next Adventure, Mr. Nick. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Man, we're doing wonderful. How are you? So how's the weather up there in Minnesota where you're at?
Man, heat wave, 40 degrees today. Felt great.
Oh,
Loved it.
Man. So let's go ahead and tell my listeners who you are and a little bit of your background.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a Air Force Security Forces vet. Talk all the shit you want about the Air Force. That's fine. I'm also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so come talk that shit to me in my face, I did 6 years, did 4 tours. I did 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and 1 deployment to Qatar. I tell people all the time that deployment to Qatar is a lot rougher than people understand. You think about it like this. You know how hard it is to walk 1.5 miles to the gym, and you go to the Dairy Queen in the gym and they're out of mint ice cream.
Oh man, that's bad.
It's rough. All right.
Fucking
I did I know, right? It was great. There's a pool, we had a game room, video games, was great. In 08, I was in Iraq doing convoys. I was a 50 cal gunner. I was a lead on the team, looking for IEDs. That intro in the beginning, they kind of mixed up some of the deployments. The guys that were making that video were not military, so it's kind of all over the place.
I got you.
2009-10, I was in Balad Air Base up in northern Iraq, Mortareeville. We got mortared like 189 times in fucking 6 months. It was rough. And then 11-12, I was in Afghanistan at Bagram doing convoys, route security, and then route clearance. After that, I decided to get out. Watching your daughter grow up on a Skype screen, that's just that was too much for me, and then found out about Jody, and then really cemented my reason for getting out. And first year was pretty rough. I ended up getting a job as a bouncer downtown Minneapolis. I'm not what's up, Carl? Not a massive dude, but I'm 6'1". I was about 200 pounds at the time, and did that for about 6 months, 8 months, and almost got stabbed a few times and gotten win too many fights and decided to quit, and eventually got a job at the Minnesota State Patrol as a dispatcher. Did that for 8 years, and I don't know what happened, but I seemed to be the suicide guy. Just about every single suicide call that I got, I ended up getting them down. There was one. Not much I could do. He called, picked up the phone, said he was going to do it, and we watched him jump off the bridge on camera. So there was, no talking that guy down, unfortunately. But there was a lot of struggles initially getting out. So 2012, 13, 14 were pretty rough for me. I was the typical salty, angry vet, hated everybody, didn't want to talk to anyone. I was professional, I was fine at work and everything, but I just didn't want to be around anyone. Around 2014, started training jiu-jitsu again, took a little bit of time off. In the military, I had 1 boxing match, I had 1 MMA fight, and I did quite a few jiu-jitsu tournaments. And so 2015-ish was probably the worst year of my life. Got to the point where, I found out that my youngest daughter was autistic. Not the end of the world, but when you're a father and you have big dreams and big hopes for your children, you realize that your blueprint for your children just got completely ripped apart.
Right.
She's 11 years old now, tomorrow. She'll be 11 tomorrow, and she still doesn't talk. She's completely nonverbal. She's got a mean left hook too, so if you piss her off, you better put your hands up. And I found out she was autistic, and that was rough for me. And at the time, I was still an alcoholic. I was drinking, probably half a bottle of Jameson every night down in my garage. I was big on never drinking in front of my children, ever, and I never have, and I never will. But I spent a lot of time down in the basement by myself, and it kept getting worse. And then a civilian Jody came around, and it got to the point where I just lost it, and put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. And luckily for me, I'm still here. It didn't go off.
That just means God's got a plan for you.
Man, I don't know what was going on, but I was kayaking up in the boundary waters of Minnesota, between the border of Minnesota and Canada. Absolutely beautiful place. If you've never been there, I highly recommend take a trip up to the boundary waters for a weekend. Absolutely beautiful. But I had been kayaking all day, and I assumed, my chamber got filled with water, because it was splashing around quite a bit. So, you can look at a million different reasons why that gun didn't go off, but I'm just glad it didn't. Shortly after that, I decided I didn't want to be that version of me anymore. So I started doing the research and looking into had to get you some crayons. I started studying the brain, essentially, right? I made a post the other day that actually, a lot of people took to. When you get out of the military, our fight is the internal battle, right? How do we come home, all the way home? How do we figure out how to blend into society and create a new life? Now, the problem with a lot of veterans, I break life down into 4 sections, right? You got 0 to 25, 26 to 50, so on and so forth. Most veterans are getting out of the military at about 24-ish, 25-ish, right?
Right.
Now, most of us start our second life walking backwards, right? All we're thinking about the military, what we did then, that's what we know. This is the and most people don't give a shit, and the people support us and they support the troops, stuff like that. I'm not talking shit about everyone, but most people at job, they don't care what you did in the military. Are you going to be able to work here? Well, in the military, we did it like this. I was that guy. And I wanted to figure out how to change that. And I needed to make some major brain shifts to get to that point where I could be a more functioning member of society rather than that pissed off asshole that just hates everybody. I didn't want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be a better version of myself. And so shortly after my suicide attempt, I realized that the person who could have saved me didn't exist. So I was going to create that person and become that person for myself. Everything that I did on my healing journey was for me. It was not for other people. It wasn't to help vets or anything like that. I had no plans of doing anything to help anybody. I figured I could barely help myself. Like, what am I going to be doing helping other people? So I started studying neuroscience, just to understand the brain and to understand the chemicals, the neuroreceptors that affect us on a day-to-day life, right? And how can I hone the good ones, right? The dopamine, the serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. How can I focus on getting those without going to alcohol or going to, doing all the crazy shit that I do? And I started digging into epigenetics, which is, the biology of belief. Quick lesson for anyone who doesn't know what epigenetics is, right? We all know what a hypochondriac is, right? A person who quite literally thinks themselves sick. It's the exact opposite, right? How can we use our brains and the knowledge that we have to change the way that we feel? I dug into Buddhism a little bit. I'm not a Buddhist. I swear too much and I like meat. So you're never going to see me in a Buddhist monk robe anytime soon. But I like a lot of the logic that comes with it, right? Like there's something called the Eightfold Path, right? And there's 8 different sections of your life that you need to really evaluate. One of the biggest ones that I looked at is it's like good work, good think, right? I can't remember all of them right now, brain injuries. But one of the things I was looking at is good work, right? Is the job that you're doing good for society, right? So if you're working at a collection center, you're not really living that life. Right. You're just pissing people off every day, right? At the time, I was a 911 dispatcher. I had a lot of happiness in the job that I was doing because I got to save people. But once I started to think about that and realizing that, the job that I'm doing right now is good for society, I became better at my job. I became more compassionate. It was a lot easier for me to help people. I'm also a stand-up comedian, so I'm a huge smartass, and I got in trouble quite a bit for saying the wrong things on the phone with some of these guys. But
nice.
Hey, you gotta laugh sometimes,
Yeah.
And the more and more I dug into all this, the more I realized, like, I don't live life by any principles. I'm just kind of floating along, trying to exist. And I didn't, that's not enough for me anymore. So I created what I call the 6 principle process. And now, again, initially I created this for myself. It wasn't for anybody else. And, real quick, the 6 principles are: look at who you associate with. What do you have, right? Looking at the things you have in your life, what are you grateful for? The next one is accept your past, right? How do we actually accept the past? Not just say, yeah, it happened, but actually accept the fact that these things happened. They weren't okay, but they happened, and we need to move on, right? How do we get past that next step? That was the biggest one. That was the longest one. That took me forever to finally get to the point where I truly accepted everything. And it kind of just released some of the power that some of the negative aspects of your life have over you. The next step is you have to look forward to a positive future. This talks about manifestation. Now, this goes back to me in 2015 after my suicide attempt, saying, you know what? I want to be the person who could have pulled that gun out of my hands. How do I become this person, right? First, I need to become somebody that people will follow. And at that point in my life, I was not that person. I was the last person that anyone would look to as a leader. So I needed to change that aspect of it. And I started to really pick up that work a lot. I became a trainer. I started training a lot of the new dispatchers, teaching them the process and the principles of dispatching, stuff like that. I started helping out a lot with crisis, right? Because I was big on crisis intervention. How do we stop the crisis, right? And that was a big one for me, because I started realizing, you know what, I want more, so I'm going to do more. On top of that, during this time frame, I started fighting MMA again, and by 2018, I was the number 5 welterweight in Minnesota. Oh, man. So I was okay.
Doing all right.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But now, when you start to manifest a future and you start thinking about, like, what do I want and who do I want to be? How do we get there, right? The next step is make a list and how to do the work, right? How do we goal set? Everyone has their own ways of goal setting. There is no right or wrong way, right? Write down some goals, go do those goals, right? Sometimes taking the steps to initiate those goals is the hard part, right? So that's where that principle is very important. Now, this is a fucking 3-hour speech. So this is what I use for my motivational speaking. So it actually helps me stay in line. And then the 6th principle is love yourself, right? Everyone's definition of self-love is different. So what we have to do, what's up, Jelaine? One of the best volunteers I've ever had right there. You have to look at love. What is love, right? Love is self-care, right? Self-talk, positive self-talk, and maintenance, body maintenance, right? We talk about fitness, we talk about nutrition, we talk about how do we love ourselves fully, right? Not just eating healthy, but also talking healthy about yourself, also having good relationships, and then also helping other people, be the light in the room. Don't always be the person that comes in just the crab ass, always bitching and complaining. I destroyed that version of myself. That is no longer me, and that will never be me again. So using these 6 principles, I got to the point where I started living a life of principle. And once I started living that life, I realized that my whole life has changed. I started thinking better. I started eating better. In 2018, I was number 5 welterweight, and I took a fight with LFA, Legacy Fighting Alliance. They're like the breeding ground for the UFC. So I needed like 7 or 8 good fights through those guys, and I probably could have made it, but I don't know.
Oh, man.
But I ended up getting knocked out. Shortly after that, I decided, you know what, this is not good for my brain health. And I decided to quit MMA altogether. Long story short, in 2015, after my suicide attempts, I went through a divorce with my first wife. I went to Brazil a couple months later with my coach because he was going to get his black belt. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's go to jiu-jitsu. Let's go train. So we went to Brazil. We trained jiu-jitsu the whole time. And I happened to meet a Brazilian girl that was gorgeous. And I flew back to Minnesota. A couple months later, she came to visit. We ended up getting married. And so she could get her green card and stay. That wasn't the only reason for me. I was hoping it would last. But I want to say 2 weeks after my suicide, or after I got knocked out, I started to get a little depressed and thinking, like, God, that was who I thought I was going to be. I was going to motivate people and be the leader through the MMA community for veterans. And I kind of lost my purpose again. And she was very turned off to that, right? Oh, Brazilian girls are very into the macho, men show emotion, you're a pussy kind of thing. And about 2 weeks later, she got a green card and left 3 days later. So by August 2018, I decided I was going to let myself be a depressed little bitch for at least a week. All right. I got a week I started drinking again, went through a couple bottles, played the whole poor me bullshit. Exactly 7 days later, dumped out the rest of the alcohol in the house, started going to the gym and lifting weights, decided I was going to stop martial arts altogether and just focus on weightlifting and nutrition. I ended up going to, I like to do this every once in a while. I had 6 days off from work and I put a post on Facebook, said, hey, I got 6 days off. Where am I going? And it just so happened that Sturgis rally was going on at the time. Now, I hadn't ridden a motorcycle since 2011 because my front wheel locked up and shot me about 30 feet in the air going 70 miles an hour. I was pretty scared of motorcycles at the time. And so I drove out there in my car and just slept in my car. And now, again, I'm immersed in these 6 principles, right? And I'm also big on being a yes man, right? Do the things that are freaky, that scare you. Do things that make you nervous, right? Go do something adventurous. So I went to Sturgis and parked my car on the side of the road, just started bar hopping, going around. And at the time, I wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic anymore. As more of like a social drinker, right? Drink with friends, stuff like that. And I got to the point where I don't consider myself an alcoholic anymore. So I went to the bar and I spilled the beer and a guy sitting next to me and he was wearing a cut. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting a bar fight my first night in Sturgis. So I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry. Let me buy you a drink. So I bought him a beer and he was wearing a ring that said vet on it. I was like, are you a veteran? And he's like, yeah, I'm an Air Force vet. I was like, oh, me too. So we start talking and a few minutes later, he's like, hey, do you want to come party with me and my friends? I'm like, yeah, screw it. Why not? He gets up and turns around and says, Hell's Angels. I'm like, shit.
Oh shit.
These guys are known to be pretty bad guys sometimes, right?
Yes, sir.
So we go over to the table and there's like 10 of them sitting there and every one of them veterans, Marines, Air Force, Navy, all of them. So I'm like, all right, cool. These are my people, right? They might be Hell's Angels, but they're my people.
Right.
And so we started hanging out and drinking and I may or may not have blacked out and woke up in my car. Luckily all my stuff was there, which was great. I had no marks, no bruises on my face. I'm like, all right, last night was good. And I charged my phone. I get a bunch of texts and it was like, hey man, dude, that was crazy. And I'm like, what happened?
What did I do?
Yeah. And then I got another text like, hey, meet us at One Eye Jack's for lunch. And I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? I don't remember these guys at all. Right. I remember seeing them and starting drinking. And that's really about it.
Right.
I go there and I walk in and these 10 Hells Angels guys go, hey, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do last night? And so I walk in and I sit down with them and the guy's like, hey man, like last night was nuts. I was like, I don't remember anything, guys. Like, I don't remember anything after that first shot with you guys. And they're like, seriously? The guy's like, hey, come here. I'm going to show you something. And he pulls up a video. I'm like, no. I was like, what did I do? So we were at a strip club, which is not a place that I frequent. I don't like strip clubs. It's not for me. And there's this lady up there dancing. Next thing you know, I jump up, take my shirt off, take my pants off, said, move. I got this. And I started dancing on the pole. Security came over to try to take me down, but the Hells Angels guy said no. The guy just backed up, and I just did my thing, and I was dancing. And I had a wad of ones in my car, and I'm just like, that explains the $1 bills. These guys were slipping ones in my boxers and shit. It was so funny. So the funny thing about this, we ended up sitting down for lunch and we start talking. And I started telling them about why I was there and some of the struggles I was going through and the depression, the suicide attempts, and all these things. Next thing you know, these 10 Hells Angels guys all start opening up about brotherhood, community, all of these things, the reason why they joined this club. And I got every one of them to fucking cry. Every one of them sharing their stories. I'm like, damn. That's when I realized that vulnerability is something that is an amazing tool that is underutilized in the veteran community. So I decided that I want to start creating an environment to get, people like me to open up. And then obviously veterans is my focus. So a couple weeks later, I had a credit card when we went through divorce with 65,000 points on it that she didn't know about. So I bought myself a divorce present. I flew to Hawaii for 8 days. Now I rented a Subaru in a tent. And I just roughed it the whole time. Dude, is amazing. I recommend to every person on here, if you go to Hawaii, don't stay at a resort, right? Get yourself a tent and just camp around the island. It was the most beautiful 8 days of my life. And every day I would meet a new person. I would sit down because I'm a talkative person. I have a podcast. It's because I never stop talking and I need to get it out. So every day I started having a conversation and I just kept running into veterans. So I started sharing my story, telling them why I was there. And next thing you know, they start opening up, telling me what they're going through and some of their struggles. And every time I had a bit of advice that was helping. And I'm like, I'm not bad at this. This is something that I might actually do. Like, and again, that whole thought of create that person that could have saved myself was still in my head. And the last night I was in Waikiki, my friend Ryan and Alex, they were actually in Waikiki at the same time. I haven't seen them since high school. And so I took them out. We went hiked the waterfall. And that night we sat down and I shared my story with them, told them what was happening and, how my life was just falling apart. And I was just trying to just discover who I was again, because I had that realization after my suicide attempt, I'm going to be an MMA fighter. And now I was in the stage of rediscovering who I want to be. And by the end of it, both of these guys sold everything they have like 7 or 8 years ago, and they travel all around the world and they live in people's houses and like watch their dogs. It's the smartest thing in the world. And they're like in Colombia, in Argentina, like, and they're both bloggers, right? They do blogs and they do like beach body stuff like that to make money. And they're like, you need to start a blog or something. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. She's like, no. You're very good at telling stories. You need to start getting this stuff out there. And I'm like, all right. So 2 weeks later, I started warriorsnextadventure.com blog. That's all it was supposed to be. I was just going to travel and try to inspire veterans to reignite the love of life. That was the goal. That's it. And a couple weeks later, I decided to take I think it was 6 veterans to climb Eagle Mountain here in Minnesota. And mountain is a stretch, right? It's a hill.
Right.
It's maybe like 1,000 feet in elevation gain, if that. It's like 2,000 feet total. It's like a 3.5 mile walk. But on that trip, I did the same thing I was doing with all these other vets. I shared my story. And everyone was like, you son of a bitch. Because I had never told anybody about my suicide attempt. I kept that very quiet. It's not something I was proud of,
Right.
And every one of these guys opened up about their depression, their, suicide attempts. One of them was in, damn it. What was the battle of 2003 in Iraq? It wasn't Ramadi, was it?
No, I don't.
No, it was, I think it started with an R. Why can't I remember this?
Hold on.
Battle of Fallujah, idiot. 2003 Battle of Fallujah. And it was one of the most bloodiest battles. And he was one of the door kickers on that. And so he starts sharing a story. Now, his wife is a trooper that ended up coming with us because it was all dispatchers and she was a trooper and then he was a vet. And I told her, I was like, hey, don't even look at him. Don't try to console him. Don't talk to him. Don't ask him questions. Just let him talk. Shut the fuck up. So he starts going on and on and on about all this stuff. And, he's crying, she's crying. Everybody gets emotional, which is pretty common with people that come on trips with me. I'm likely going to make you cry in some way for good reasons. And, on the way back down, it was just laughter, talking shit, typical stuff. Every single one of them sent me a text message that night. Said, dude, that was one of the best things it's one of the best trips that I've ever had. I'm like, this is what I need to do. So I started Warriors Next Adventure 501c3. We did our next mountain climb in New York. And within, I want to say, the day that I got back from New York, I got my 501c3 approval. And everything's just slowly evolved since then, man. And I started the 24/7 crisis line in December of 2019. And to date, we've had 124 veterans call me on the crisis line, and they're all still alive. So I'm pretty good at this.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I like literally when I reached out to you, I guess it was a couple months ago, and started looking into what you guys do and the people that you've talked to and the crisis line that you've got, and watching the videos that are on your website and then the YouTube channel, and I was like, man, this guy's got it going on. And what a lot of people don't realize, especially when you're dealing with veterans, we like to bottle that stuff in. We like to keep it to ourselves. We don't like letting it out there. And one of my buddies, James Thornton, who's he was in Somalia during Black Hawk Down or Operation Gothic Serpent, and he was telling a story when he goes out and because he's got a trailer, he's an ambassador for Warrior Rounds. And good night, Rat Man. Good night. He goes out and he tells his story, and he says, man, he said, I could be talking to 20 people He said, but all it takes is just that one person to hear my story, and then they're going to open up. And kind of like you were talking about. He said he was talking to a group of veterans up in West Virginia, and he said he was talking to somebody, and his wife said, man, he'll never open up to you. He'll never open up to you. But as soon as James got done, telling his story, that veteran opened up. And I was like, that's what it is. If veterans tell their story to other veterans, the veterans realize, hey, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then people start opening up. So I mean, that's amazing.
You'd be surprised how many people tell me, like, hey, my uncle, my dad, my brother, my sister, like, they will not talk to you. I'm like, okay, we'll see. Give me 5 minutes with them. Right. I have a method with my crisis line, which I got in trouble for often at the state patrol, but it worked. So I didn't really care. Right. I think I got like 6 write-ups for not being professional on calls, but I don't care. I saved every one of them. So fuck it. It works.
Situation.
Exactly. It's extremely stressful, and you have to handle it in odd ways. Sometimes the book is not the right way to do it.
Right.
So my way of breaking it down is you got stop the bleeding, right? Is stop the crisis, right? Get them to avert their mind. Next, you need to figure out what is the main issue. The next step for me is make them laugh, right? Every one of these guys, I've gotten them to laugh within 15 minutes. My goal is 15 minutes into the conversation, I will make them laugh. Right. And it's usually something fucked up that we're not supposed to say. Right. But you say to another vet when they're in crisis, it's funny because, I mean, it's not even funny. It's just ironic. And when you're in that amount of crisis, when somebody hits you out of left field with like a, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? And you start laughing and giggling, you're like, all right, I got him. Right. And then you get that relatability. Right. The relatability is so important if you want to stop a crisis. They need to know that you are like them, right? We are brothers, we are one, and I don't want to lose you. So once they realize, like, oh, this person loves me, right? I don't want to fucking hurt them, because now you put it on them to like, hey, protect me by not killing yourself.
Yeah.
The next step is, what's next, right? How do we stop this from happening again? Or how do we get you to a point where you can start thriving, not surviving? Right. Because there's too many people out there just trying to survive. That's not good enough. Right. And if anyone thinks that surviving is good enough, no, it's not. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you are. If you're just trying to make it through the day, it's not enough. You need to start digging. And usually the majority of these people, towards the end of the conversation, I start to poke around and ask, I think I've asked this question to every single crisis vet. What's your purpose in life? And every one of them just sits in silence. And I don't say a damn thing until they say something.
Right.
I let them sit there. Sometimes there was one guy that sat there for like 5 minutes, and I just sat there silently. And he's like, man, I have no idea, man. And the reason why I started helping people start nonprofits was actually my boy Steve, which, write this down, Steve from X22 Adventures. Love the guy to death. He's such a sweetheart. He sounds like Larry the Cable Guy, so he's always fun to talk to too. And I love this guy to death. He was actually one of my crisis calls in 2020. Okay. The only reason why I talk about his story is because he openly talks about this all the time. And when he called, he had just had his leg amputated. When he was in the Air Force, he ended up hyperextending his knee and tore a bunch of tendons and stuff in his knee. Ended up getting out as a firefighter, did it again, and then he was addicted to opiates for, however many years. Finally, he went to the VA and said, dude, this hurts, just cut it off. And so they cut his leg off, and he was laying in the emergency room after the surgery, and he was depressed, and he said he was feeling suicidal. So he ended up calling, just poking around, and Googled veteran nonprofit, and he found me for some reason. It was great. He called me, and we talked for about 45 minutes or so. And I asked him towards the end, I'm like, hey man, what's your purpose? He's like, I don't have a fucking purpose. I'm like, all right, that's your purpose, is to find it, right? That should be everyone's purpose in life, is to find what their reason for being is. And that's up to us to define. If somebody could tell you this is what you're supposed to do. No. How many people are told by their dads, this is what you need to do with your life, and you do something completely opposite?
Yeah.
And throughout the conversation, I started asking him, I was like, well, what do you love? He's like, man, I love fishing. I was like, tell me about fishing. And so we talked about fishing for another 45 minutes. And by the end of it, I told him, I was like, why don't you start a fishing nonprofit? He's like, man, fuck that. He's like, I just got my 100% permanent total. I just got my disability. And now you're telling me I need to go work. I was like, what are you going to do with that money? What are you going to do with it? He's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, are you just going to sit on your ass the rest of your life? I was like, are you going to do something with the freedom that you now have, right? With your ability to pay all your bills without having to lift a finger. What are you going to do with that? And he's like, man, I'm not. Exactly. And he's like, man, no, I'm not doing that. So we end up hanging up. I want to say a week later, he calls me up. He's like, hey, man, X22 Adventures, let's go. We're doing it. And I'm like, got him.
Got him. Wrote them in.
So,
yeah.
I helped him get his, I helped him do his filings and everything like that. And then next thing you know, X22 Adventures was an official nonprofit. And last year I went to go see him. And the crazy thing is this guy told me he's only raised $15,000 since 2020.
Oh,
and
man.
I'm like, bro, he's taken over like 400 veterans fishing since 2020. I'm like, how the hell are you doing that? He's like, man, I got money laying around. He's like, I don't do much. He's like, I just go fishing. So he takes a vet fishing with him every time he goes. So he's getting better with donations, which is great because he deserves it. And then my nonprofit, I send money to him all the time. I sponsor vets all the time. The beautiful thing about it is Steve's great at it. But last year, we can get into this later, but I was rowing a boat across the Atlantic Ocean, and we capsized, and we spent 18 hours in a life raft 900 miles off the coast of Africa.
Oof.
And when we ended up getting rescued, that was a big shock to my system. And I ended up getting knocked out when we capsized, and I was out for about 5 minutes. When I woke up, I was 2 feet underwater in the cabin.
Holy shit.
I couldn't get out. There was 2 guys that were out on deck. It was a 28-foot rowboat by 5 feet wide, and we were rowing from the Canary Islands in Spain to Antigua in the Caribbean. It's a 3,000-mile row. So 16 days in, we're 900 miles off the coast, and we're sitting here floating in 40-foot waves, and 70-mile-an-hour winds. So it was rough. So Chad dove underneath. He helped me open up my door, and I waited for the water to fill up all the way up to my neck, and I dove underneath. I went to go straight up into the footwells where the rowing straps were for your feet. Because there's about a foot of clearance, and I figured I'd have room. But I didn't think about it. The whole back end sunk. So when I came up, I hit my head, and I sucked in a bunch of water, and I swallowed it and breathed it in. And so I panicked, and I dove underneath, came back up on the other side. I grabbed the rope on the side of the boat, and as soon as I came up, I started throwing up. And shortly after that, within seconds, we got hit by another 40-foot wave, hit my head on the side of the boat, got knocked out. And I woke up about 1.5 feet underwater holding onto the rope. So I pulled myself back up, started throwing up again. Like, oh, my God. I look at Chad. I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? Because I'm still dazed and confused. I don't know what's going on. So I see the life raft starting to float away. Because when they cut the life raft on, they accidentally cut the rope that was tethered to the boat. So I swim to the life raft. I jump inside, put my body back in the water with my feet inside, swam back to the side of the boat and held on to the side. Meanwhile, the whole time we're getting hit by 40-foot waves, like every 30 seconds or so. So Tommy was in the front cabin gathering supplies. Will was underneath pumping the bilge pump. So Tommy had enough water. There was enough water getting pumped out so we could grab everything we need.
Right.
And then eventually they all got in. But while Chad was in the water, he was cutting off stuff from the side of the boat with a knife. And then he threw a bunch of stuff in. He handed me the knife. What's up?
He poked a hole in the boat.
Bro, I put this knife in my mouth, and I'm holding onto the boat with this hand, right, to a rope, and he hands me a bag. I grab it, throw it in, and right as I go to grab the knife, we get nailed by another wave. And now that rope is only 1/4 inch thick. So it ripped out of my hands, and from here down to here was all the way down to the bone. And it was fucking gross, man. So I yell, fuck, and as soon as I yell, the knife just right into the top tube of the life raft. So I grab the knife, and I throw it, and I jam my thumb inside. So now I'm sitting here like this, holding the boat, with my thumb like this in the side of the raft so we don't sink. So we all get in there. About 6 hours go by. We do an inventory, and all we had was 4 bottles of water. They were 1.5 liters. We were supposed to have food in there, but it wasn't there. It either got tossed out in the ruckus or there was just nothing there. We had a VHF radio, and we had a what do we call it? A sat phone, which got wet, that didn't work, so we couldn't turn it on. Oh, damn. And we had one parachute flare. That's all we had. So crazy. 6 hours go by. I'm like, hey guys, like I'm probably gonna lose my thumb because of the pressure of that raft on my thumb. And I'm like, and I'm cool with that if it means we survive. I was like, can we find something to plug this damn hole? And so we find this shitty cork. We put it in there, but because of the knife cut, it wasn't sealing properly. So every 30 minutes we had to set a timer. When the timer would go off, 2 people would pump the life raft up, and then one person would do a call on the CB radio or on the radio to say like, we'd say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Wilby crew. We're in a life raft. We need rescue. And what's up, brother? That's a good dude right there. So we do that while we're pumping up the raft, and by the end of the night, sun goes down, and we have 10% battery left on our VHF radio. We found out from the Coast Guard that all of our beacons went off, which was great. And so we're like, somebody's coming for us. Like, they have to come. And
Right.
I want to say 2 hours before we get rescued, timer goes off. We all kind of wake up. None of us were sleeping, but we're all just kind of sitting there just
At a daze, yeah.
It's a 3.5 foot wide by 3.5 foot wide life raft with 4 dudes that are about 200 pounds, and all three of us were over 6 feet tall.
Oh, damn.
So it's not very comfortable, I'll tell you that. So we pick up the radio, we do the call, and then we hear. I'm like, guys, I was a dispatcher for 8 years. Somebody fucking heard us. So I was like, say it again, but this time say, we cannot hear you. Give us 2 mic clicks if you can hear us. And we hear, and we all just start bawling. So we give them our location, because we had a Garmin GPS that actually really saved our life. So we gave them the location. We said, give us 2 mic clicks if you copy. We were just like, oh.
Yeah.
So about 2 hours go by, and we're like, where's this damn boat? So we thought it was a sailboat that was coming to rescue us, because they had 2 sailboats that were running along the race. So there's 43 boats rowing, and there's 2 sailboats, one at the front of the crew, one at the back of the crew, constantly checking on us. At this point, they hadn't checked on us yet because it was only 16 days in. So we're thinking a rowboat's coming for us, right? And then we see the lights off in the distance. I'm like, I don't think that's a rowboat, dude. So the thing circles around, comes around on our western side. We're facing north, and the boat starts coming up north. And I'm the first one out because I was sick and throwing up. I was what's called dry drowning because I had inhaled so much seawater in my lungs. My lungs were starting to just disintegrate. It was gross. So I was throwing up all day, and I didn't look too good, right? The guys told me afterwards they were really worried about that I was going to pass away. So I lean out, I look over, and I go, holy shit. And I look up, and it was a 35-foot, tanker, and I think it was 580 feet. So they throw down this dinky little rope, and I'm like, these motherfuckers expect us to climb this damn thing? I was like, look at my hand. I'm missing flesh. I got fat hanging out. It was just gross. So we pull up to the side of the boat. Then they drop a ladder down, one of those crappy wooden rope ladders. And so luckily for us, we had these rowing gloves. And so I put the rowing gloves on so I could grip the whatever they're called, the ladder easily. So I get up first. Will gets up second, and then Chad goes to climb up. He goes to grab the rope, and he dislocates his shoulder, falls back into the water. His feet fell in the life raft, and his back fell in the water. Right as his back hit the water, he got hit by a wave. Right as Tommy leaned out and grabbed him, pulled him right back in the life raft.
Oh, shit.
Now, this crew of Filipino, there was 2 Croatians and then 3 Ukrainians. These guys were amazing, right? So the ship was from the Netherlands. They just got a medal from the King of the Netherlands for saving us, which was super awesome honor for these guys. Some of the most badass dudes I've ever met. I got brothers in the Philippines too. So they run down, they throw another rope down, and both of them end up getting up. So long story short, we go up to the deck after we eat amazing food. Right, it was probably shit food, but we've been eating dehydrated food for 16 days. So
right, it's like eating
bro. I downed a fucking prime rib that was like the size of my fist, 2 plates of spaghetti, like 7 apples. I'm just like, dude, I was crying the whole time I was eating. I was so happy to eat food. So we go up to the captain's deck and we call the president of the organization who we were rowing for, called Fight or Die, and he goes, "Hey guys, how's it going?" We're like, "How's it going? What are you talking about?" So we found out after the investigation that NATO did on the Coast Guard that the U.S. Coast Guard got our beacons. They sent it to Cape Verde, which Cape Verde was supposed to do an all call and send every ship our way. Now there was, I think, 6 capsized that night on the race. So these boats are made to autocorrect. So every one of them autocorrected except us, but we were one of the last ones to autocorrect. or we were one of the last ones to go over. So there were so many false alarms that night. They assumed ours was a false alarm and deleted our alarm. So nobody was looking for us.
Oh, shit.
Now we're 900 miles off the coast of Africa. When they rescued us, they were the closest boat aside from them was 500 nautical miles.
Holy fuck.
That's a couple day rescue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have a hole in our life raft. We have 4 bottles of water. I'm dry drowning. I got, my hands infected. And, what's up, Ron? Ron's a good dude. On top of that, we have 10% battery left in our VHF. Nobody's looking for us. So if that boat wouldn't have saw us, which another crazy thing, they were delayed 12 hours from leaving South Africa to go up to Montreal. So if they wouldn't have been delayed, I would not be talking to you right now. We also found out after the investigation that the manufacturer of the boat that we were rowing is called a spindrift. She lied about the schematics. So when she got that boat, she cut it in half, extended it, no big deal, but she didn't resubmit the schematics to the Coast Guard to see if that boat would right itself. Once they had the new schematics, 90% of the time it failed. So that boat should have never been in the ocean. So, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here, guys.
Dude. Man,
it's crazy, man. It'll make you reevaluate your life. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
But the reason why I went into this,
when were you there?
This was December 28th of 2022. Sorry.
Have you went back on the water since?
Fuck no.
Okay.
Nope. You're not gonna see me on the ocean any day soon. I'm good.
Not anytime soon. No.
Man. No thanks.
So any way you look at it, with your history, the failed attempt at suicide, which is amazing that you're still here to be able to talk to us. And then you went on this boat ride and you almost drowned and almost died at sea. There's a reason why you're still here. And that reason is so you can do what you're doing and the mission that you're doing and continuing your service by helping veterans, your brothers, your sisters that are out there dealing with, whatever issue they're dealing with. So for me, when I got out of the Marine Corps, so I got out in 2001, right before 9/11 happened. I got out in August. 9/11 happened. I got recalled back into the Marine Corps. First time the Marine Corps ever activated the individual ready reserves. Got sent back to Camp Lejeune for combat refresher training because I was 0311 infantry, and then deployed from there. When I got out in 2004, I lost that sense of purpose. Kind of like what you said, you lost that sense of purpose. And for me, I hit the street running with a job, like a normal day job, but that void was still there. Like I'm not doing enough. So I got involved with, a bunch of different veteran charities and helping out doing this and doing this. And one of the best things I did was work with Operation Victory, which they go in and they find dilapidated homes and then they demolish them and rebuild them and give it to a homeless veteran, which is amazing because the population of veterans that are homeless it's so huge. And, my thing is one veteran at a time. You help one veteran today, that veteran's going to turn around and help 2 veterans tomorrow, and so forth. It's like a daisy chain or a pyramid, basically. And so, I got involved with some veteran service organizations. I was on the board of one, and after I left that organization, man, for 2 years, I kind of sat idle, and I had procrastinated about starting this podcast because I needed something, but I didn't want to be back in the veteran service organization because there's a lot of them out there that are not doing it for the right reason.
I strongly agree with you there.
A lot of them, they focus on, just the number of veterans and the amount of funding they're going to get. And then, some of them are corrupt, some of them ain't. And when I started doing this podcast, I was like, look, I want to do something. I want to highlight organizations out there that are focusing on the veteran and not worrying about the money or where the money's coming from. They're actually doing it for the right reason. So that's why I scour the internet, and I'm always looking for the grassroots ones, not the name brand ones. Not saying that Wounded Warrior is not good, not saying that Mission 22 is not good, and other organizations out there.
Yeah.
But the ones that are on a smaller scale that are, locally or regionally, that's the ones we look at, because JR, if he's a veteran, he might not know, the Hope Project down in Florida. He might not know about Warriors Next Adventure in Minnesota. He might not know about Wayward Warrior Ranch in Virginia. So that's what we do here at this podcast, is we highlight those organizations so people know. So like Lady Veterans Connected, which is in Winchester, Kentucky, they have a school they converted for female veterans. Now it only houses like 15 female veterans, but the only problem is if those females have kids, well, that they can't go to their program. So I connected veterans villages in Pennsylvania with Lady Vets, and they're working on building something for female veterans and their kids.
Nice.
So it's going to be like a little small village for them to come and with their families. So that's the whole purpose of this. And that's, like you said, you got to find your mission. And my mission is to help veterans by letting them know what's out there for help for them. So
yeah. Well, I think about like this. Sorry, go ahead.
I said it's all about that networking.
Yeah,
100%. And I tell people to think about it like this. Everyone tells us, man, you need to expand. You need to expand. You need to expand. I'm like, no, I'm not going to expand. Right. Because that's how you get the Wounded Warrior Project and the Mission 22s. And then you get everybody trying to dig their fingers in funding. Right.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, they're not bad organizations. They've done some shady shit in the past, but those people are gone. Yeah. I know people that have been helped by Wounded Warrior. I know people that have been helped by Mission 22. They're great organizations, but I tend to maintain quite a bit of control over what happens. I have 2 board members that are both like my ride or die, love those guys to death, right? So they're more focused on the keeping everything ethical, right? So there's anything that's going to even slightly benefit me, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm going to take 3 veterans down to Florida for the weekend, right? And because we go down to X-22 quite a bit. I always make sure to do a meeting with them, have them approve it, everything like that, because I'm involved in it, right?
Right.
Even though we're using my truck, we're using my mileage and everything like that, I still want to make sure, look, this isn't just something I want to do. This is something that is going to be amazing for these veterans, right? So everything I do, every time I travel, like I'm a motivational speaker, I travel all around the country. I do jiu-jitsu seminars everywhere. And every time I go, I take at least one veteran and I focus on at least one vet that is struggling. And I'm like, you are going to come with me. You're going to help me, and you're going to sit and you're going to listen to me, because we got a 14-hour drive and we're going to work on your shit. Right.
There you go.
So every veteran that's traveled with me, they will tell you that it's a life-changing experience. And again, I'm not trying to say like I'm the fucking veteran Tony Robbins or anything like that, but I have the weird ability to see what's wrong, and I have the strength and the experience to help them build a future. But it has to be focused on what do they want, right? Once I understand what they want, I'll just start throwing shit at them, right? And like I said with Steve, the reason why I was telling you the story about the capsize and the ocean rescue is when I got back, I got such a bad migraine, it lasted 45 days, and it was terrible. I didn't leave my house until mid-February probably. And luckily for me, I got an amazing woman with me who contacted Steve. And they were talking, and I don't know if Steve contacted her or whatever, but she told him like he's not okay. I was thinking about getting rid of the nonprofit and just quitting everything completely and just becoming a hermit, right? That would not have been a good thing for me. But I was dealing with so many mental health issues because of that. And the brain injury itself, that was my 15th concussion. So I'm not doing great upstairs. So I wasn't doing so hot. So they made a plan. He was doing his first ever veterans retreat down in Florida. And I guess he wanted me to be there. He told me about it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can make it. And I was being super wishy-washy about it. So he contacted my girlfriend and they got me a plane ticket. And they said, you don't have a choice. So
you're going.
Son of a bitch. So we go down there and we go fishing, and I step on the boat, immediately start having a friggin' panic attack. But we're on Lake Okeechobee. It's only like 10 feet at the deepest, right? So I'm like, okay, you're with people who know how to swim. There's boats everywhere. You're going to be fine. And I just start coaching myself the same way I would coach a veteran, right? So I just start using my own process again. And we get out there, we start fishing, and I'm fine. Within 20 minutes, I'm fine. At the end of the retreat, you know, I was doing my thing the whole time, and Steve told me, he's like, hey, talk to these guys. They need your help. So I started talking to some of them. I helped one of them like change his sales. He builds fishing lures. It's a really cool process. So I helped him with his social media marketing, and now the guy's making TikTok videos left and right, and his sales are up like 1,000%.
Hell yeah.
There's another vet that was just struggling with some relationship advice, and on and on and on. So there was about 7 of us there, and I had personal conversations with every one of them to help them lay out a better path for their life. And at the end of it, he had so many different things that were donated that he was giving away to all of us, which was great, like fishing tackle boxes. And so he hands me this fishing pole, and he's like, hey, man, what's that saying there? I can't read this. And it says Staff Sergeant Nick Rahn, you know, Iraq, Afghanistan. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck is this? And this shit still makes me emotional. I love this job. It is the best thing in the world. But Steve looks at me and goes, I wouldn't be here without you. He's like, this organization wouldn't be here without you. He's like, when I called you, I was going to kill myself. And he's like, you helped me find my purpose, and I wanted to bring you here and thank you. And I cried like a bitch. I'm like, you son of a bitch. I'm like, I hate you right now, dude. I was like, you're fucking using my tricks on me. I was like, you son of a bitch. He's using my language. And I'm like, God, I hate you.
But that's what made it worth it, though.
I needed that. That. So what I started ended up helping me again. And it brought me back 100%, man. Shortly after that, I went to the Marcus Institute of Brain Health because of my migraines and my TBI was so bad. It was like I couldn't work. Like I was sitting at home constantly, like just laying in bed. And then on top of that, using that as an excuse to say, fuck it, I don't want to do anything. And the Marcus Institute of Brain Health, if you guys don't know about that, any veteran listen to this. If you've had a TBI and you struggle with PTSD, you have to have had a TBI to go to this place. But if you've had a TBI and you're struggling with PTSD and you're struggling with day-to-day activities, Marcus Institute of Brain Health is one of the best therapies that I've ever had. It's a holistic healing. They talk about literally everything. They have like yoga classes. They have art therapy, which when I heard that, I'm like, this is stupid. We go in there and this tiny little adorable old lady sits down. She's like, I'm just going to have you draw a tree. I'm like,
a happy little
bitch wants me to draw a tree. I'm gonna sit here and draw the stupid tree. I'm saying this in my head. I'm like, just stupid. I'm drawing this tree. And the whole time, like, it's fucking dumb. I was like, I hate this. Why am I here? And then next thing you know, I draw this like mural of a tree, and there's like darkness on one side and like happiness on the other. And like, I didn't know what I was doing half the time. And she's like, so let's talk about this. This bitch psychoanalyzed me better than anyone I've ever met in my life. And I'm like, how dare you? And I'm bawling, and this girl like just puts her hand on my shoulder. She's like, it's okay. She's like, this is what we did. And I'm like, I never thought I'd say I enjoy art therapy, but it ended up being my favorite class. You know, it was an amazing thing. I actually got something here. I'll show you guys. They have everybody.
Where is that located?
It's in Aurora, Colorado. You just go to the Marcus Institute for Brain Health website, and there's an apply. You make a phone call, and then you do an intake. You can use Warriors Next Adventure as a reference. I get nothing from it, but if you get the reference from me, you're very likely to get accepted from the program because I told them who I was, and I interact with them quite a bit. So they make everybody make a mask, and they showed us a bunch. Yeah, kind of like, you know, how do you feel? You know, so I ended up making this monstrosity, right? So it's got like the red eyes, got the tears, got the angry side, and then every single mark in there was one of my concussions. I've had 15 of them. And this is where I tried to shoot myself. And I put the X through it, pretty much saying that I'm never going to do it again. Right. And then I wrote the words, this is what I speak. You know, Warriors Next Adventure is my logo. Nice. And in it, I took a piece of paper and I wrote all the things that I have to continue to tell myself, like, you are loved. You know, it's just stuff like all that sappy shit that no one likes to talk about.
Kind of like this right here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because men need to hear that, right? Women too, but men really need to hear that kind of shit. And we need to tell it to ourselves as well. But that program really brought me back, man. And every single nonprofit that I've helped start is just me throwing a rock in a pond and just watching the ripples. Because every nonprofit I start, I watch their progress and I stay on it as an advisor. I'm not involved in these nonprofits, but when they need help or they need help with fundraising, or let's say they want to take like 6 vets to go do something, they're short like $1,000, they'll call me up and I'll help wrangle up $1,000. Whether we have it or I can help them raise the money for it, find them a sponsor, something along those lines. So pretty much what I do is I advise these nonprofits on how to stay ethical. That's the most important thing for me. Stay ethical. Don't steal money, because I will blast you all over social media.
Oh yeah.
I'm that guy. If I find out that someone's stealing money, like, I'm going to let everybody know, because it gives us a bad name, you know.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, people have tried to accuse me of things, and I quite literally just show them my bank statement. It's like, I've never made a dime from this nonprofit, not one penny, and I'll never take a dime from this nonprofit. But the big thing is, I want to know what their path is. What is their understanding of what they want to do? And a big thing I tell them too is, like, your nonprofit's going to morph, right? From day 1 to day 100, it's going to be completely different. You're almost never going to do the exact thing you want to do. Like with us, initially we started with mountain climbing. Eventually I found a lady who was one of my troopers' sisters. She owned a bunch of wolf dogs. So we started Operation Wolf Dog, and we helped her become a 501c3. She was my second nonprofit startup. And because she didn't have a lot of money, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Create a nonprofit. People will give you money left and right. Trust me. I was like, especially if we start a program together called, you know, Operation Wolf Dog. I'll take vets up here. We get to play with the wolves, but I'm also a carpenter. So we'll build dog houses, we'll build fences, we'll build houses, whatever you need. So I take vets up there all the time. And, you know, we've rescued, I think 20 wolf dogs total. And we've built cages. Like, I personally have rescued a wolf dog. His name was Timber. He was my best friend. There's a TikTok video that I made. And the first day I met him, he attacked me and he bit me pretty good. But in that video, he's like, you know, tail between his legs every time he sees me. Dude runs up to the fence and does backflips off the fence. So it was just amazing. Yeah. So they unfortunately shut down back in November. She ended up losing the house and all the dogs got relocated. But then we ended up finding we got called out to a dirt track race for mental health night, and they let us set up a table, and we start talking, and I find a vet. He's wearing a ranger hat. He's just kind of wandering around the table, but he won't approach us. So I told the guys, like, hey, I'll be right back. So I go up to the guy, start talking to him. I was like, what's up, man? You a veteran? He's like, what makes you think I'm a veteran? I was like, I don't know, the Army Ranger hat that you're wearing. He's like, touche. So we start talking, and that night, every division got a trophy, and that trophy was dedicated to somebody who recently took their life. Turns out his son, who was also an Army Ranger, recently took his own life, and he was presenting a trophy. So we start talking, and I tell him, I was like, so, like, what did you guys do together? He's like, man, we worked on cars a lot. I'm like, what would you do if Warriors Next Adventure got a race car and we started a race team? He's like, would you want to be involved? And he's like, hell yeah. So a week later, I had a trailer and a race car in my garage. And we've been working on that thing. I think we've had 17 veterans race their very first dirt track race in that thing.
Nice.
We got I think it's a 79, don't quote me, 78, 79 Monte Carlo. We're dropping a 350 in it. So we're going to have that. We're going to have street stock this year. And the veterans will race. The street stock's mine. I ended up buying it from the nonprofit because after the whole ocean row thing, I started reevaluating safety, and those things crash all the time, and they're pretty bad crashes. So I'm like, you know what? I'm buying that. I'll race that. Every time I win money racing, I donate it to the nonprofit. So it's still technically a nonprofit car, but I own it because I don't feel right being the only one racing that car, you know, and it's the nonprofit. It just doesn't seem right. So I gave the money back to the nonprofit. And then the other vets race the Hornet, which is a 4-cylinder. And then every year we do a mountain climb in Colorado. We call it the Colorado Retreat. This year we got 13 vets. I take them out for 6 days, and it's a 6-day mental health retreat. So what I do is every year on our birthday, April 18th, we do a lottery. So the first 5 veterans to raise $500 or more, they can get a sponsor. They can, you know, get people to give them the money, whatever. First 5 people to raise 500 or more get to go, all expenses paid. Nice. And then everybody who raises $200, every $200 increment is a ticket into the lottery. Okay. So we end up taking 10 vets. So 5 more vets get a chance to go into the lottery. This year is a special year, and we're full already because my buddy Tim, who I'm going to be having on the podcast soon, he took a grenade to the head and lost a chunk of his skull. And his squad was in a pretty crazy battle. And so what we're doing is we're taking Tim and his whole squad of 9 guys. We're taking them all for their first reunion since 2004. Oh, man. So it's going to be a very emotional year this year.
So I'm going to step in real quick. So there's an organization called Warriors to Racers. So it's Warriors, the number 2 Racers. It's an all veteran race team, and there's several of them are out there. But it's from the pit crew all the way up to the driver is all veterans.
Nice.
And they do an 8-hour endurance race, so it's
Nice.
endurance racing. I got Ed McLean, who's an Air Force veteran, that's going to be coming on. He's the founder of the organization. I think you and him should get linked up in the racing portion of things.
Yeah,
So what I'll do when we get off here, I'll send you his information. That way you can get in contact, because what he wants to do. So there's other, his is Warrior Racers, and then there's other ones out there, and he wants to do some kind of like coalition with a race, with all the racing out there. I think that you and him could get together and come up with some kind of great idea with that. So.
Yeah, I was actually just on Burning Rubber Radio, and one of their guys, two of their guys are veterans, and one of the guys is actually a chef for NASCAR
Nice.
for one of the race teams. I don't remember who, but I'm like, hey man, I'm also a pretty damn good cook. You need help at one of those races, and happen to fly me out there, I wouldn't say no.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give a shout out to Big Al. Al's one of the co-hosts of Triple Threat Vets podcast. He's down in Florida, and the other three are out in Texas, and he's one of the guys that are on the tip of the spear with me with Triple Threat, and super cool cat. I'm gonna send you his information, or I'll send him your information so they can have you on a guest as on Triple Threat. So
yeah, absolutely, man. The thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is that what you are doing with Warriors Next Adventure out there, man, is it's amazing, and the word needs to get out about what you're doing. I know you want to kind of keep it small on the small scale, but if we can get the word out what you're doing, that's what we're all about.
Well, the beauty is, the Colorado trip, it's people from all over the country. This year, like I said, it's a little different, but eventually what we plan on doing, my end game in the next few months, I'm actually opening a dispensary, and it's my dispensary. I own it. It's not associated with the nonprofit. However, the place that we found is 2,800 square feet. We don't need that much space. So there's a side door. What we're going to end up doing is donating 650 square feet to the nonprofit. We're going to build a podcast studio in there. And then we're going to have like meeting rooms. We do a men's group already. We're going to be doing a women's group eventually. And you don't have to be a veteran to be in those groups. I've had enough like troopers and cops say, man, I wish I had a group like yours. I'm like, well, why can't we? Let's do a men's group. So once I find a female vet to run the women's group, we'll be doing that too. I mean, I guess I could just identify as a woman for the day, but I'd rather not.
You want to start one in Massachusetts?
And then have you guys ever heard of Vets Court?
Yeah.
So I went to a Vets Court meeting, and the judge, I didn't know I was speaking, but the judge pulled me up, and I gave a speech in front of everybody, told them what we do. And what they have to do is they all have to go to 3 social groups a week. And I talked to a bunch of the guys that were in Vets Court, and they're actually struggling to find groups to go to. So what we're going to end up doing once we have this, our office, is I'm going to start putting on a weekly group meeting for Vets Court members. So it's going to be a lot about the 6 principle process, essentially try to just help them, how to get away from the life that they're living. On top of that, every month I volunteer at the local veterans home for homeless vets. They live down, it's in Fort Snelling. It's by the VA, but it's technically apart from the VA. It's funded by the VA. It's hard to explain.
Right.
But I go in there and I give speeches every week. We do PTSD groups. I do one-on-one stuff like that. They offered me a job as a peer support counselor to get paid to do what I do, but I'm like, nah, I'm good. I like freedom. No, thank you.
Right.
But I still do one-on-ones with some of the vets that are struggling with mental health issues, purpose, stuff like that. On top of that, all the programs that we do, right? That's the shiny part of what we do. Like, oh, race cars? Hell yeah. I'm a vet. I want to go do that. Little do they know when they come race with us, we're going to be talking. Right. I'm going to be digging into that head of yours, and I'm going to try to figure out how can we help you. Yeah. Every single trip that we do, whether it's doing jiu-jitsu seminars, whether it's the race cars, the mountain climb, the wolf dogs, every single one of those are just a way to keep my vision going. Right. It's creating that space where veterans feel vulnerable enough to open up. Right. There's a thing called window talk or windshield talk. When you're working on a car with another guy,
Yeah.
Conversations start flowing, right?
Yeah.
When you're climbing a mountain with a group of guys, next thing you know, guys start having realizations, right? Especially when we're doing the 6 principle process during the retreat. I'm giving them a lot to think about, right? And these trips are mainly to get guys together, to get them isolated away from everybody else, so I can get them in a spot where they can be vulnerable and open up, right? That's awesome. I like the hospice vet program. That's actually a really good idea. But the main focus is to get these guys comfortable enough where they can open up. And we've probably, I don't have the exact number, but it's over 1,000 veterans that we've interacted with directly one-on-one and gotten them to a point where they've created a new future, and we're helping them just push them in the right direction. We've interacted with a little over 40,000 vets since April 2019. And like I said, we've had 124 veterans call the crisis line, and they're all still alive. So
that's amazing.
What I do is very personal.
So I have with the your crisis line. How does somebody find that? Because
so if you
there's a stigma with some of these veterans not wanting to go through the VA and not wanting to call the 988. And like, if there's a different avenue to put out there, how do we do that?
That's exactly why I started it. All right. I'm not saying I'm better than the crisis line or anything like that, but it's another option, right? So if you go to warriorsnextadventure.com, right at the top, it's right there. Pretty easy to find us. At the bottom, it's down there. But you just essentially call the phone number. It's my personal phone number. Yeah, that's me picking my nose in that video.
So yeah,
if you scroll down, there it is right there.
There it is. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure it's very visible.
Yeah, it's right there at the top. Like you said, you just scroll down 612-518-9282.
And that rings directly to this phone right here.
Okay, so you're the only person that deals with that when it comes to your crisis line.
I've had other people offer to become a part of it. However, you start getting the liability, right? So
absolutely.
if I got a group of 4 or 5 guys taking crisis calls, now I have that liability on it. And the last thing I want is somebody else on the phone with a veteran and they kill themselves on the phone.
Yeah.
That is the last thing that I want anyone to do, because I've experienced that with the State Patrol. And, I wouldn't say it haunts me anymore, but I still think about it.
Of course.
I don't, and I have, I need to update that website, but I have 19 years of crisis intervention training. I was trained when I was in the Air Force. I was Air Force Security Forces. For those of you who don't know, it's like being a cop or security guard. But I was lucky enough to take a training course, top of the FBI. We had a couple DEA guys there. There was one CIA guy there and a couple local SWAT members, and then a couple of us from this lucky team that got to go in there with them. And they taught hostage negotiation, active shooter training. So I'm trained in active shooter. And on top of that, neuro-linguistic programming. So that's actually something that I really dove into when I started my healing journey in 2015. And neuro-linguistic programming, the best way to break it down, you go to a car dealership to buy a car, you end up buying a car that is way too expensive, but it's cool and shiny, right? He's using neuro-linguistic programming. What he's doing is, and what I do, easiest way to explain this isn't the right word, but the easiest way to explain it, I manipulate veterans into wanting to be better, right? Into wanting to find something else. The main thing figuring out with using neurolinguistic programming, you got to figure out what's the problem and what are multiple different solutions, right? But also, what does this person want? So what you do is, again, this never shuts up, so it's constantly moving. And any veteran that I start talking to, within a minute or two, I can find out what's the main problem. What is he using to soothe it? Alcohol, drugs, usually. And what are this person's hobbies and interests, right? So we figure out what are the hobbies and interests so we can divert away from, the negatives, right? The alcohol, the drugs. Yeah. And then from there, you have to make it their idea, right? So every single veteran that I talk to in the crisis line, I don't tell them you need to do this. We start talking and figure it out. Next thing you know, I keep leading them there. And eventually they're like, man, I need to fix myself. I'm like, yes, you do. That's my favorite thing in the world, when I get somebody to start admitting that I need to get better. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
The realization.
But exactly. Because when you help somebody have their self-realization that I need to get this shit together, rather than saying you need to get your shit together. Because the way humans are programmed, if I were to look at you and say, hey, your podcast is this, this, and this, you need to start doing this. Instantly, no matter what, no matter who you are, I'm like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to be your initial thought. Now, if you suggest and say, hey, you know, I've seen people do this, this, and this, it's pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm like, oh shit, cool.
Yeah.
Let's help you figure out how to do that. So you're quite literally just tricking people into saying the things you want them to say and doing the things you want them to do, right? But obviously using it for good. It's an extremely useful tool. Plus, you know, you got to be a likable guy. You got to be able to have conversations. You have to be able to empathize. And if you don't have all of those, it's going to be really hard to use neurolinguistic programming. But, you know, with being a dispatcher for 8 years, my job was communication, you know, being a cop in the military, it's communication. Everything in those career fields is about communicating what you want and getting your point across without pissing people off for the most part. Yeah. Leadership 101. Yeah. But you also have to be, and again, this sounds douchey, so please don't take this the wrong way, but you have to be a model, right? Not like Calvin Klein model, but you have to be a model of like, hey, this is what I did to get my shit together. So that's why I talk about my story, because I was that guy drinking half a bottle a night, putting a gun in my fucking mouth, right? And now I own 4 businesses. I run a very successful nonprofit. I run a crisis line. I coach thousands of people into turning their lives around. And, you know, I'm a guy that's been an MMA fighter. I've climbed mountains. You know, we have a motorcycle group. We do all these cool things. I still compete in jiu-jitsu. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I do all these things. And it's not to be like, hey, look at me, you know, but think about it like this. With a guy of my background, right, from what I've told you guys, or if you have another veteran who drinks constantly, you know, doesn't know how to properly communicate in public, right? Just telling people to fuck off and shit like that.
Right.
Isn't financially successful, doesn't have a good relationship. Who are you going to follow? Right?
Yeah.
Who's the example? You know, and again, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I got flaws, but I have everything I've ever wanted. And it's because baby gap model. But I created who I wanted to be. Like I said, in 2015, I wanted to create the person that could have pulled that gun out of my mouth. And I had the realization that I've become that person in 2020. I had a crisis call on the crisis line, and the veteran just so happened to be 2 blocks away from my house. Like, what are the odds of that? So I go to his house, and he's sitting in his van with a pistol in his hand. And I go over to the passenger seat, and I jump in, and I look at him, and he's holding the gun in his lap. And I tell him, I was like, look, dude, if you're going to kill yourself, you're going to do it with me in the car. And he looks at me like, what the fuck? I'm like, listen, man, when I tried, I was all alone. I was like, you're not going to be alone, but you owe me a conversation. And so we start talking again. Within 15 minutes, I get him to laugh at some dumb shit. And about 45 minutes in, he starts just sobbing, and I lean over and I give him a hug, and I pull the gun out of his lap. He doesn't fight me, pull it out, drop the magazine, pull the slide back, take out the bullets. And I just give him a hug, and I told him, like, dude, I love you, man. Like, you're a vet, you're a brother. I don't want to lose you, you know, so let's create a plan together. You know, me and you, we're going to create a plan, and we're going to figure out how we can get you out of this. So I brought him down to the VA. He went through voluntary 72-hour hold. Eventually got him connected with a program called RRTP. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's mental health and drug addiction. So it's like a 60 or 90-day program.
Right.
So he went through that. Eventually one day I just start watching his Facebook posts, and it starts off initially with our first meeting, like, everybody hates me. This is bullshit. I hate life, to motivational quotes or motivational pictures and stuff like that. I start seeing his communication change, and I start seeing him actually start to look at life in a brighter view, because he had somebody to say, hey, look, you know, it's right there. You know, you can have a different life. And a lot of it comes to me being vulnerable and sharing my story. You know,
That's gratifying.
It really is, man. It is one of the best things in the world. And this is one of the most selfish things in the world that I've ever done, because every single time that I get to save a vet, I go right back to me sitting there in 2015 holding the gun, and I just talk to myself. So I get to save myself every single time I answer a call. You know, it's kind of like the validation that I belong.
I can't say that's real selfish, though. It's still pretty selfless of you.
So
like,
the reason why I say it's selfish is because the reason I do it is because A, it makes me feel good.
Okay.
B, I get to re-experience that moment time and time again, which is also called re-traumatization, but that's another story. But it's all to see that person, grab them, and just reshape them, reframe it, and then push them off and watch them grow. So now I get to watch that person every single day, every time that they're doing well, every time that they're doing good. I get to have that feeling inside that, God, I really helped this person.
So you get self-gratification and you get to lay your head
Yep.
down at night because you're a good human being. Like, I don't call that selfish.
By term, it is still selfish because I'm doing it for myself, right? I'm doing it. The only caveat to that is my selfish.
Solely doing it for yourself.
No. Still, the fact that I'm doing it for myself is still by definition selfish. However, my selfishness positively affects the world. So I don't give a fuck what anyone says to me, because, you know, I get to help a lot of these people. And, you know, somebody actually said here, Justin, you know, perhaps selfishness can be selfishly motivated. Yes, absolutely. That's actually a great way of explaining it. But by definition, it is selfish, and I'm okay with that. You know, self-care, by definition, right? I'm going to do this for me because I need it. That is technically, by definition, selfish. But it is not a selfish act, right? Because when you're taking care of yourself and you're fixing yourself, think about it like this. If you're trying to take care of, you know, you're trying to take care of B, C, and D. How are you going to take care of those people if you are not at 100%? Everyone needs to be selfish with self-care. You need to focus on yourself and you need to fix yourself, because if I'm not operating at 100%, I can't give 100% to others.
It's like the oxygen mask.
Exactly. Put yours on first. You know, and I tell people all the time that are struggling with a vet who is struggling with depression, anxiety, alcoholism, whatever. I speak to a lot of relatives of veterans, and I tell them all the time, I was like, this is not something you're going to want to hear, but are you going to drown trying to save somebody else? When you've done everything you can, right? Usually a lot of these people have done a lot for these guys, but they're like, I just can't take it anymore. I was like, don't drown trying to save others. That's what organizations like Warriors Next Ventures for. Let me take it from here.
But,
give yourself a break.
Okay, so let's be devil's advocate here. Do you, with everything that you're involved with and everybody you come in contact with, is there not, even though the selfishness of yourself doing this for yourself, are you not also potentially drowning yourself from taking everything on? But I mean, you have your hands in a lot. Like, so and I know the meaning of burnout is it's a real thing. So, like I said, devil's advocate.
Sure. So
I get how your brain works. Trust me.
I get that a lot. Especially from my family. But I've built an organization full of everything that I love.
Right.
I love mountain climbing.
Mm-hmm.
I love saving others. I love changing people's lives. I love the effects of changing other people's lives, because, like you said earlier, it's a ripple. You save one, you save others. Mm-hmm. I love race cars. I love wolves. I love travel. I love adventure. So what the fuck is there to burn me out? I literally get everything I need to fill my cup in what I do every day. I take time for myself. Like, you know, I shut my phone off. You know, I don't shut it off, but I mute it, and I only answer phone calls. You know, unless it's a friend that I know, I'll go 3-4 hours without touching my phone. Mm-hmm. I always keep my ringer on just to answer numbers that I don't know. I answer every one of those. I've never just said, fuck it, I'm not doing this today. But like, if I have a friend call me, I'll ignore them. I'm going to take 3 hours for myself. I go to the gym every single day. That is my selfishness. That is my me time. I don't care what you're doing. I'm at the gym. I'll call you later. All right. Unless it's a crisis call. I've stepped out of the gym a few times. I train jujitsu at least 3 times a week. That is my 100% self-care, because who doesn't love strangling people and not getting in trouble?
So was your entire military career Air Force?
Yep. I was in for 6 years. I was
your only Air Force?
Yeah.
See, because I was going to start this out with giving him some shit, but like, he kept talking, and I'm still trying to figure out how you were Air Force, because you've actually done things. Like, no, because yesterday I was out on the trails, and I was out there with a hatchet, and I was like, I was clearing these trails, like 60 foot of this trail. and like cutting up, falling down trees and everything else. And then I looked down, I was filthy, and I realized I was like, I should have taken a selfie and posted it because I had an Air Force hoodie on. And I was like, it's probably the most work that somebody's done in Air Force gear.
But at that point in the war, the Army was getting overrun and they were getting overworked. So Air Force Security Forces, our whole job is to protect the resources to get the jets in the air. Right. That's our main focus. Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to protect the perimeter. So we protect the perimeter. Sometimes you got to go outside the base to stop, stuff coming in. Right. So route clearance. Now, we didn't do any door kicking or anything like that. It was all, looking for IEDs was the most that we did. In Afghanistan, we were the QRF for the base. So we actually responded every time we got mortared. We go out and try to find those fuckers. And it was mainly just taking over for the Air Force or for the Army because they didn't have the manning. They were getting just destroyed by continuous deployments. Mm-hmm. So with Air Force Security Forces, the Air Force came from the Army Air Corps, right? So we're technically not anymore, but we were part of the Army, right? So the Army, so everybody that was involved in the Army Air Corps ended up going into the Air Force, right? So we received the same training as the Army. Right. We train with the Army Rangers whenever we do pre-deployment stuff. We're always training with either Rangers. Not every time. A lot of time it's infantry. Sometimes, very rarely, it's all Air Force trainers. But usually we have, like in Fort Lewis before my 2008 deployment, we did convoys. We were training up at Fort Lewis with the Rangers. They were the ones training us on like shoot and move, going through shoot houses, stuff like that. And then in when did I go to Bliss? Bliss is terrible. If any of you guys ever been to Bliss, dude, we were staying in those swamp cooler freaking things. It was so hot. And I'm from Minnesota, and it was August. Like, it was miserable, dude. 110 degrees every day. Ugh. At least when we were in Afghanistan, it was during the winter. So I was like, this is great. It's snowing out. I feel like home. We made snowmen every chance we could too, and left them on the side of the road to freak people out.
Hell yeah. Well, let's take a small break to pay the bills per se. So I'm going to drop y'all out real quick and I'm going to pay the bills. All right, guys, if you're out there and you're in the music business and you're looking for a venue in the Louisville area or nationally, check out talenttalents.com or Louisville Local Entertainment. You got Chris Hawks and Rick Ames. Rick was on here earlier today. If you're in the music business, check those guys out. And if you want a shirt made, man, go check out sameflagsameoath.com. Matt and Becky out there, man, they do amazing things. And if you're looking to buy a home, check out Veterans Mortgage Solutions. The all veteran team, they will definitely take care of you. So let's get to the videos.
Owner of Talon Talents here, and I just want to say that we are ecstatic to be a major sponsor of Homefront SitRep, a community that is ran by veterans and made for veterans. So thank you for tuning in. Talon Talents was formed in order to create a music scene that was together in the form of a collective, so that no one has to do everything on their own. And guess what? We've been doing this for free for over a year. So please go and check out Talon Talents through Facebook or through our official website at www.talontalents.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for tuning in to Homefront SitRep, a veteran-owned and operated podcast just for you.
My name's Rick Ames. I own Louisville Local Entertainment, a company for music shows, promotions, and bookings in the Louisville music scene. As a veteran, it's my honor to support and sponsor local veteran-owned businesses such as Homefront SitRep, made by veterans for veterans. So if you're in the music business and need some help booking or promoting a show for free, look me up, Louisville Local Entertainment. And thanks for tuning in to Homefront SitRep.
Gear up in style wearing Got Your Six apparel. Every purchase makes a difference. It's more than just clothing, it's a statement of gratitude. Upgrade without breaking the bank. Discover cost-effective, high-quality clothing made in the USA. Each shirt is handcrafted by our team in the great state of Texas and shipped for free to your front door. Got Your Six is where quality meets purpose. We're a small veteran-owned business that takes pride in the mission and the value of our products. Join us in growing a community, supporting our heroes, veterans, and first responders by wearing a custom design.
I thought you'd never ask.
Visit sameflagsameoath.com and use the code TRIPLETHREAT for 10% off. Follow us on all social media platforms for any upcoming releases or events, and you can reach out to us with questions anytime. We are here to support our brothers and sisters.
Hey guys, Mac Verdi here with Veteran Mortgage Solutions. As rates are dropping, home values are going to start to go up. It's time to start looking if you're looking to purchase a home. That being said, we are an all-military veteran loan officer team. We know the ins and outs of the VA home loan. We are considered the experts in this field. Give us a call today. Go to our website, veteranmortgagesolutions.com. Fill out my quick form. I'll give you $500 off for its closing costs. Have a great day.
And we're back. Yeah, like I said, go check out talents.com or Louisville Local Entertainment if you're in the music business. Those guys, they do it for free. Rick is a Marine Corps veteran / Navy veteran. He does it for free in the Louisville area. And then talents.com, they do nationwide. They book venues and stuff like that, and they manage bands and stuff. So does Rick. He's got 12 bands that he manages. And then sameflagsameoath.com, man. I'll tell you what, those shirts are amazing. I'm actually in the process right now of getting a co-branded shirt. It's going to say "Marine It Down" on the front. Basically, keep it simple, stupid, marine it down. And it's going to have the same flag, same oath logo. Then it'll have the Marine home front sit rep logo with the Got Your Six logo on the back. And that's going to be co-branded. And what's good about that is at the end of the year, the proceeds from that or my percentage of the proceeds will come to me, and then I'm going to donate it to a charity of choice. It might be Warriors Next Adventure. It might be Lady Veterans Connect. It might be the Roll Call Foundation. It might be one of those organizations. I don't know yet. And then if you're looking to buy a house, Veteran Mortgage Solutions, check those guys out. All veteran team. If they know the ins and outs of the VA loan. So definitely check those out. So let's go ahead and bring Nick back up. Candace is still on a little hiatus.
What's up, guys?
So Nick, sameflagsameoath.com, like I was saying about the shirts, if you wanted to get a shirt made for Warriors Next Adventure, they would do a co-branded shirt with you. And then at the end of the year, that would be kind of like a fundraiser for your nonprofit. And
what are they called again?
Sameflagsameoath.com is the website. It's Matt and Becky Johnson are the owners. Matt is a naval chief, retired, and his wife Becky, she is amazing when it comes to creative design. So
nice.
But yeah, I definitely would check them out. He's working on a shirt with, like I said, for me, it says "Marine It Down." It's pretty neat. We're going to be doing the unboxing soon, and then the link's going to be live on their co-branded site, so we can people can start ordering the shirt. And
nice.
We got a few others in the works as well. So
that's awesome. Yeah, we use Printful. Just because I got tired of shipping shirts, man.
Yeah.
That's like a part-time job right there. So we use Printful. So everything in our store, it's the profits go directly back to the nonprofit. Nice. So when you order from our store, it goes to Printful. Printful makes it, ships it, so I don't have to do anything. So that's super helpful.
So do you get 100% of the profit from that?
100% of the profit, yes. But it's still like t-shirts cost like $19. We charge like $25. So it's not a lot, but it honestly, every time someone's wearing our shirt, it's
That's all
advertising.
matters.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not the fact that I want to, it's not really a fundraising thing. We still make money off of it, but it's more so the more people wearing our stuff, you know, because we have a shirt that says "Live a life of purpose for those who or for those who can't," and the eye is like the helmet, the rifle, and the boots, and it's got our logo on the back. And that alone, I've had so many people reach out to me like, "Dude, I saw somebody wearing your shirt. I really want one." So I send them a link and say, "Are you a veteran?" Sparks up a conversation, works out. So it makes it a lot more efficient for us and saves me so much time, dude. Because me and the post office are not friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, you know, the main focus of everything we do is we want to show veteran that you can completely change your life, right? If you're in a spot that you don't like where you're at, it's as simple as reevaluating your life, right? And I tell everybody the 6 principle process is something that anyone can apply to their life, right? And there are a lot of blanket statements in those 6 principles, but overall, you know, if you really dig into what they are and what they mean and everything inside of them, I'm writing a book right now called The Warrior's Path to Inner Peace. And the subtitle is going to be the 6 principle process. So it's going to be utilizing. I have ADHD.
Just a little bit, right?
I gotta keep that ADHD thing busy. I get bored if I just sit on my
I'm doing all of this. Oh yeah, I'm writing a book. So.
Yeah, I think I'm like 22,000 words in, so I got maybe 2 more chapters. I need to add in the whole debacle with the ocean row. So, but the main thing is utilizing my life experience, how I came up with these principles, and how anyone can apply them to their life. Utilizing my story and how I've used these principles to shape my life and who I am today. You know, we talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, you know, how to start your own business. It's not really an entrepreneur's book, but there is a section there where we talk about, you know, how do we change the direction of our lives, right? But how do we find what direction we want to go in, right? So if you look at our logo, it's called a Vig Sphere. It's a Nordic compass. It's meant to guide you on your way, even if you don't know where you're going. It's the perfect logo for what we're doing, right? There's a lot of people that hate on it because it's a pagan symbol, and the Christians seem to not like it very much sometimes. Not all of them. I'm not saying all of them, but we get shot in the foot quite a bit because people immediately start hating on us. I'm like, do you even know who we are, what we do? I was like, you're just looking at a symbol getting mad. Well, that's not very Christian of you, buddy. You know, and especially when our main focus is saving lives and helping people make their lives better, you know.
Definitely.
It's whatever. But it's whatever. No matter what you do, you're going to get hate. And the thing that I tell anybody, especially when I'm telling people when they're starting nonprofits, people are going to find reasons to hate you. Yep. Because the majority of those people, they're usually projecting. You know, they see something in you that they want, they get jealous, they shoot you down. It's the whole knocking somebody else's tower down to make yours look bigger kind of concept. And the best way to treat those people is I just say, I love you. And they get so mad. And it's not to make them mad, but it's just like, hey, listen, man, like this is all love. You know, you're shitting on something where I give my life to other people. And that's fine. You can have your opinions on it. It doesn't phase me. It's not going to change how I feel. You know,
right.
I'm pretty happy with my path, and there's not one person that's going to take me off of it. So this path that I'm on, when I started Warriors Next Venture, I had 0 business skills. I don't know the first thing about running a business, let alone a nonprofit. So I went to YouTube University. I got my certificate, and I just watched a bunch of videos to figure it out. And then I just started the process. I learned by doing. So the deeper I got into the business side of the nonprofit and marketing and digital marketing, digital graphics and stuff like that, I taught myself how to use Adobe Illustrator. That was rough.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of training that you can do on YouTube. And then Adobe also has a lot of really good training too. But I just taught myself every aspect of business that I needed to learn to run this thing, because I wanted to run it like the way I want it to run. You know, the problem with a lot of these bigger nonprofits, they get so many people in there trying to stick their fingers in everything. And then now you got good idea fairies just throwing things at you. And now you're not even doing what the mission is supposed to do. I saw so much of that. I realized that I'm not going to let this get tainted. I'm going to continue doing what I do. And we do have an ambassador program. As of now, I think we have 6 ambassadors. And what their job is to do is to tell other veterans about what we do. But I also have what I call the ambassador handbook. So I sat down and I made I think it's like a 45-page booklet. It's step by step of what to do to help a vet, and every situation's in there, right? When I worked at the State Patrol, when I became a trainer, you know, every single process, you know, for an injury crash or a regular crash with no injuries or a crash with a deer, you know, a shooting, everything has a different checklist. So what I ended up doing is I did a step-by-step, you know, dumb it down for the military folks, you know, because I'm not the smartest person in the world, right? I need to understand every aspect of it, and I need to know how to do everything perfectly. And if I don't know that, it's going to be really hard for me to do something efficiently. So I started making essentially like A to B. Anyone could read that, sit down and do it. And so I wanted to make my booklet essentially the same way. Number one is if a vet is suicidal, send them to Nick immediately, because I don't want them taking that on, because it's really hard to do.
It's rough. Yeah.
You're listening to a guy crying on the phone with a gun in his hands, and his life is literally in your hands. So there's a couple of my ambassadors I think would be good at it, but the liability terrifies me. On top of, what if this person kills himself on the phone with my ambassador? Now my ambassador's fucked. You know, I want to avoid that at all costs. But then on top of that, we help them get their VA benefits. We help them get connected to the proper VSOs. We have a couple national VSOs that we have on our call list. And shout out to Joanne and shout out to Zach. Those are 2 of my go-tos. I actually helped Zach start a nonprofit called Roger Up. It's here in Minnesota, which is really nice because we send vets to each other left and right. He works for DAV. So it's actually a huge benefit to have him on my team. So they're not ambassadors per se, but those guys, they help me out so much with vets. So I've gotten to the point where I can file a VA claim, and I've gotten plenty of veterans approved for their VA claims. But I know that I'm missing certain things because I've never been properly trained in it. Right. So now that I have him as a backup and then I have Joanne as a backup, those 2, whenever I have a vet that needs to get either reevaluated or needs to file their intent to file for an initial claim, I send them to those guys and then they take care of it. I get a vet here and there like, oh, I don't trust VSOs. They work for the VA. I was like, no, they don't. Right.
Yeah. VSOs
they don't work for the VA. Their job is to fight the VA for you. We had a Vietnam vet that I met at a VFW, and I could tell he had cancer. He's missing all his hair, missing his eyebrows and everything. So I go to start talking to him, and he was affected by Agent Orange in Vietnam. And I found out that he had never filed a VA claim. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And then I find out he can barely pay his rent. You know, he's struggling every month to make do. I'm like, dude, please file a VA claim. He's like, no, I don't trust those guys. I'm like, here, fill out this paperwork. And I sent him, I printed out I had the VFW print out a power of attorney. I'm like, sign this over to me. Let me do it for you. So I did all the paperwork for him, did all the filing for him. He had no medical records, but he has cancer. It's pretty obvious. So we did all of that. I picked him up every day, took him to his appointments, make sure he went to every single appointment that he had, and he got 100% permanent total, like within 5 months, which is crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But now he can easily pay his rent. You know, he's at the VFW a little bit more, drinking too much, but now he's an advocate for people going to the VA. And I'm like, your job now is to convince all these other Vietnam vets to go get their VA claims. I was like, because look how much it's improved your life. He's like, man, you've changed my life. I was like, nope, you did it. I was like, I just did the paperwork. I was like, you did the work.
Pay it forward on lock. It's pretty awesome.
Exactly. My big theory is every time a veteran who calls the crisis line, it's usually about 4 or 5 months down the road, when they start to notice the changes that they've made in themselves, that's when they really start to, you know, show their gratitude, which is nice. I don't need it, you know, but it's nice. But every time they call me, the majority of these guys have told me, like, dude, you saved my life. And I tell every single one of them, no, I didn't. I was like, who's the one that called me? He's like, well, I did. Like, okay, who's the one that listened to everything that I told you to do? He's like, well, I did, but you told me. I was like, hold on. I was like, who's the one that applied everything that we talked about, all the lessons that I taught you, everything that we spoke about, all the books that you've read, all the podcasts you listened to? Who's the one that did all that work? He's like, well, I did. Like, you saved your life. All I did is guide you in the right direction. And what that does, again, that's another psychological attack for the most part. What you're doing is you're empowering them to let them understand that, oh shit, I really do have control of my life. Sometimes you need to reach out for help, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you need somebody who has what you have to help you understand how to attain it. That's why when I help people start businesses, I talk to them all the time, like, what entrepreneurs do you know? Like, well, I don't know any. I was like, okay, that's step one. Find yourself 2 or 3 entrepreneurs to mentor you. That is always number one for anyone starting a business or a nonprofit. Obviously, for the nonprofit side, I kind of act as that mentor for those people. I'm not super financially successful, but my bills are always paid and there's always food in the fridge. So, what I tell people is the first business I started was, it's called Invoke Change. It's what I started doing my motivational speaking. I was doing life coaching, but I hate that term. I hate that term so much. It's a stupid term to me. I don't like hearing it. But I think I had 45 clients my first year, which I thought was crazy that people are going to pay me money just to talk to them. I'm like, I'd like doing this. So I felt like a criminal at first, man.
Yeah.
But these people are paying me $100 a visit. What I do is I would only take local people too, because I like the physical interaction. So I'd take them hiking and we talk about what they're going through. We'd set them up on a program. I'd give them the 6 principles speech. And then we just meet up for checks. I take them to the gym. We go lift weights together. They're like, I don't like lifting weights. I was like, I don't give a shit. This is part of your training. We're going to go lift weights. And every time, especially people who don't work out, every time after the first workout, they're like, man, I feel really good. I'm like, yeah, it's called endorphins, motherfucker. Like, there's a reason why people talk about lifting weights, right? It doesn't have to be lifting weights, but some sort of physical activity. So I focus a lot on what I call the happiness cocktail. Most veterans experience their trauma while these main neuroreceptors are firing. You got oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and adrenaline, right? So what I do with Warriors Next Adventure, I try to trigger those things while we're doing an activity. When you go play with a wolf, I've seen so many vets that look like badass motherfuckers step inside a cage with a wolf and just sit their back up to the cage and like freaking out. I love it. I love it, man. And I go in there, I put a hot dog in my mouth and I'm like, come here, Bubby. And the wolf comes over and takes it out of my mouth. They're like, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, nah, dude, it's just, you just got to learn to relax.
Yeah, you got to.
And then you see these people slowly start to get comfortable around these wolves. Next thing you know, they're petting a wolf. Like, that's a sweet thing to do. But what you're doing is they have the adrenaline immediately. We always do hiking. A couple of the wolves were leash trained, so we take them hiking to a waterfall, which ironically was called Wolf Creek Falls, right in the back of the house.
Nice.
So we get the workout, we get the endorphins. On top of that, you get the serotonin and dopamine release from, right? You get serotonin from having fun, right? And a lot of people use cocaine for that. I can't say that I didn't have a 6-month spell of that when I first got out of the military. So that's another thing that I'm really happy I kicked. But finding natural ways to cause dopamine and serotonin rather than flipping through fucking Facebook and looking at dings and red buttons. So you get the dopamine release from just achieving something, right? So taking a wolf on a walk and nobody died, right? That alone is going to release some dopamine. On top of that, you get the oxytocin. Oxytocin is called the love drug, right? So it gets released when you're, cuddling with your partner or sex, but you also get it from camaraderie, right? Being around people who are like you, but you're also having fun together. That releases oxytocin. So what I do is I help get these chemicals going, and then we start talking about the trauma, right? So if you're familiar with EMDR therapy, it's usually there's either you're holding two little devices and they vibrate like left, right, left, right, left, right. What it does is it activates both hemispheres of your brain, and it helps you piece certain puzzles. It helps you connect certain dots, even some that you may not even know to exist. There was a professor at Harvard that started taking her clients hiking instead of doing, the left, right movement with your eyes or the vibrating handheld things. And she started realizing she was getting the exact same effects while taking them hiking, while talking about the traumas. So what I did was I adopted that with the nonprofit, right? I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just a guy who's learned how to do a few things. So what I do is we go hiking, we go do, go to the race cars, play with the wolves, whatever. We initiate this happiness cocktail, and then we start talking about the trauma. And what happens is that new adventure, right? The hike with me with the wolves in the mountain, or climbing a mountain, walking through the woods, whatever. What happens is that new event is now tied to that trauma. But what happens is, instead of the trauma having the power, now that new experience has the power. Because whenever you start to have flashbacks of those terrible moments that we talked about, it's now tied to the dick and fart jokes that we're telling to each other, while hiking and having fun. On top of
positive.
Exactly, right? So now you start to lessen the effects that those traumas and those experiences have over you. The beauty of it is it 100% works, right? The biggest reason why it doesn't work is if somebody has the idea in their head that they cannot be fixed, right? So that's the biggest thing that I focus on. I need to help people understand that you can change who you are. And my example is myself, right? You look at the things that I've been through and look who I am.
Yeah.
I tried to kill myself. I almost died on a motorcycle. We had quite a few IED blasts in Iraq and mortars and stuff like that. I fucking survived a suicide attempt. I had cancer in 2021. I almost died in the middle of the ocean, and I'm still a very happy person.
Oh, yeah.
I am lucky enough to say that I don't struggle with PTSD anymore. Still have it, still have flashbacks and stuff, but now I understand how to control it. So when I start to have flashbacks or I have nightmares, which I still have pretty terrible nightmares, but I wake up, I breathe, I focus on certain breathing techniques that I use constantly, and I lay back down and I can go right back to bed, and my sleep is usually not super affected. I can't say the last time I slept a full 8 hours, but it's always disturbed here and there.
Yeah, I'm right there
But
with you. Like, I couldn't tell you when I've slept a full 8 hours without being interrupted by something.
yeah,
Especially with like my night terrors and stuff.
yeah,
There's times I'll wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, then fall right back asleep, and then be back up at 3 o'clock, and then and so forth. And uh, helping veterans helps me. It don't eliminate it, but it helps minimize it.
yep,
There might be a stretch where I can have a good night's sleep for 2 or 3 days and be fine and not have a dream or night terror or whatever. And then there's other times where it's every other day that I'm having, and it's just like, what the hell is going on? But doing what I do with the podcast, and then still doing the volunteering that I do with other with charities out there helping veterans, whether it's taking food to the homeless camp and giving food out to veterans, or demoing a house and rebuilding it and giving it to a homeless veteran, seeing it through,
yeah,
and doing the podcast. I mean, it, like I said, it don't minimize it, but it helps, or it don't eliminate it. It just helps minimize it.
yeah,
And then, like Candace was saying, that you're always doing this, you're doing this,
yeah,
this. Well, one of my things that I say is idle minds and veterans don't mix, because
mhm,
I know me, if I'm sitting idle, my demons start creeping in, and I start thinking about things, um, and it's not good for us as veterans. It's not good for us.
I
And
call it idle hand syndrome.
there you go. There you
Yeah,
go. So, and my wife will tell you, if I'm not working my normal 9 to 5 job, I'm always doing something with the podcast. I'm always looking at this, and it to a point where sometimes my wife thinks that I'm eliminating them from the process, because I'm always doing something with the podcast. Uh, let's see. Carl just says, I got some traumas from the military, some from deployment, but also social traumas I endured in the service too. And I hate that there are times when a conflict arises, I immediately become reactive, and I know it's because of those social traumas too. Carl, I would agree with you 100% with that, because I don't react very well sometimes with my wife or my children per se, because I have certain triggers. Like, we go to church on Sunday. I want to leave the house at 10:45 to be to church by 11:15 is when mass starts. I want to be
Mhm.
I want to be at church so I can get in there, get my spot that I like. I got to be it's comfortable. So
Yeah.
and some of
That
that's
there is
from
called anxiety, my friend.
yes, I definitely have anxiety, and so I went to my VA journey just started last
Good.
year.
I'm happy to hear that.
I've been out since '04, and just had my second therapist appointment. And when I went in and I talked to the original doctor, and I was telling him everything with that has gone through my life, and he goes, what you have there is a chronic case of PTS. And I knew I had PTS. I just kind of pushed it off to the wayside and was like, no, I don't
Yeah.
have that. I don't have that because Marine Corps mentality, oh, you gotta be macho. You can't say you're fucked up.
Yeah.
And and I know I am. I mean, I know I have my issues. Um, and it's one of those things. It's like, hearing a doctor say it, because my wife has been saying it for the last 15 plus years, hey, you
Yeah.
need to go get help. But hearing a doctor say it, that it's not just PTS, it's chronic PTS.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, first responders, prime example, first responders, when they're, get to a call and it's a child that has died in a car crash,
Yeah.
that shit never leaves them because they're automatically thinking if they got children that age that it could have been their kid, and it never leaves them. So
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is why things like EMDR are extremely helpful and why what we do works so well is because I'm not saying we do EMDR, but what I'm saying is the effects are very, very similar. Um, there's a program here in Minnesota called it's called Veterans Resiliency Project. And what they do is they pay for 11 sessions for a veteran to go do EMDR therapy. EMDR therapy, I did it out in Marcus, and I think I did it 6 times in 3 weeks, and it helped connect so many dots, right? And like I said in my post the other day, people who've experienced trauma, not just veterans, people who've experienced trauma, their biggest battle is internal. It's your
mm,
subconscious, right? So if you don't understand where those dots are that you're not seeing, it's like getting punched in the back of the head, right? So these therapies, what they do is, um, these therapies are helping you understand the enemy, right? It's, you know, well, yeah, Carl, meet me down if you're the same person I'm thinking about, meet me down in Cincinnati, man. I'll be down there March 14th through the 17th. We're going down for a 5K. Long story short, young girl was working with us and ended up taking her own life, and her family does a 5K every year. And they
mm,
donate to 3 different nonprofits. Ours is one of them. And I also have a comedy show that night at Bombs Way Comedy. Come check me out. But if you don't understand the enemy, you're going to lose, right? So think about mental health as a battle, right? When you go into battle, you're going to have intel. But if you go
mm.
into a battle with zero intel and you know nothing and you don't have the right equipment, you're going to lose,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Unless it's the US against anyone else, we'll probably be all right. But anyway, you have to gather intel. You have to understand what's happening, right? And education is it's your best weapon, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't understand what's happening up here, it's going to be like, think about the Amazonians that live in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. First time they saw an airplane, they're probably freaking out, throwing spears at it, losing their shit. But if they understood aerodynamics and thrust and lift and all that stuff, then they'd be like, oh, it's an airplane, right?
Right.
But the first time they saw it, that is a spaceship. That is a alien. We don't know what that is. It's trying to hurt us and kill us, right? And that's how we feel when we start to feel the effects of PTSD, especially, guys like us, military members, right? Shut up and push. Shut up and push. Don't talk about that
Yep.
right now. Shut up and push. Get your shit
Yep.
together. Get back on mission. They never really tell us how to come home, right?
Yeah.
And if you come home and you never do the work, you will never fix yourself,
Yeah.
right? You might be okay. You might survive, but you'll never thrive, right? And
Yeah.
the goal in life is to thrive, is to have a life that you would be proud of. And I'm not proud of the life that I was living back in 2015. I'm not proud of it. I've done things within that time period that I'm proud of, sure. But overall, I was sitting down in my boat in my garage drinking, You know, half the time I'd start fishing in my garage, you know,
Yeah.
to start
Yeah.
casting and reeling just because I hated everything about my life, you know, and now, you know, I'm happy to come home. I know my kids are going to be here. I know my girlfriend's going to be here. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to walk into my house that I own, that I bought, you know, and I get to sit on my couch, you know, especially after the ocean row. I've been a big fan of the couch over the last year and a half.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But I've built a life that I'm continuously proud of. You know, I have so many different things that I've accomplished, and I'm not an accomplishment collector, but I have to have a mission. I have to
Yeah.
be doing something, and not just the nonprofit. The nonprofit is one mission. Everything within it, that's one mission. There's a lot of, you know, side missions within it, and that keeps me super busy, but I also have my personal missions, right? I want to be a good father. I just took full custody of my kids. Um, has it really slowed down my process and a lot of things? Yes, absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said no. But my kids are worth it, you know, because I want to make sure they have a life and they're provided for, and you know, they're not in any danger. So if that means I need to back up on some other missions, my kids, you know, a lot of people get mad when I say this, but my nonprofit is number 1, right? I'm number 2. My family is number 3. My girlfriend sure don't like when I say that. But if I'm not doing a mission, I am a depressed piece of shit. I
Yeah.
hate my life and I feel worthless. But if I have a mission and I'm a driven man and I'm going towards my goals constantly, that's the kind of guy that I like. You know,
Yeah.
that's the version of myself that I love and I appreciate, because that person is constantly trying to do good for others, you know. But at
Yeah.
the same time, with running the nonprofit, I've learned so much about business. I've started 2 successful businesses, one motivational speaking, the other carpentry business. And once I get this dispensary going, I'll be able to donate anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year to my nonprofit. On top of that, I'll be able to get a new house because I have a 700 square foot house with 6 people. It's a little
Oh,
tight.
it's a little tight. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and a dog and a cat. So, but what I plan on doing is, again, with the business mindset, when I buy my new house, what a lot of people don't know is I bought this house with a VA loan. I can buy my second house with a VA loan now because I've been here for 3 years and still keep that original loan that I have with this house, and then I can rent it out. What I plan on doing is I'm hoping within the next like 4 or 5 years I can pay it off. I only owe like 120,000 on it. If I
Okay.
can pay this off, what I can do is I can rent it out to a veteran family, and I'm connected with a bunch of organizations that deal with homelessness. I can find a family who is either losing their house or in a poor situation or whatever. I can rent out this house for like $800 a month, and they have a
Right.
700 square foot house, 2 bedrooms, bathroom, just remodeled the kitchen. It's got a garage, got everything. It's got everything a family needs for a house, and I can rent it out for something that's affordable, but still make $800 on the side. You know,
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
easily charge $1,500 a month, but who's that helping? You know,
Yeah. Definitely.
so as long as everything I do eventually helps others, I'm gonna do it. Right. And starting my business, it's gonna take a little bit more of my time, but I already have a GM. I already have 6 people ready to go to work there. My goal is to never have to step foot in that place. And by doing that, if I ran it solo with my GM, I could easily make $300,000 to $400,000 a year.
Right.
But that takes up a lot of time. My time is more important than money. So I can pay my GM a great wage to where he wants to work there. I could pay everybody else $20 an hour, which is above what the minimum is here in Minnesota. I think it's 15. I can pay them a good wage, something that's actually going to, you know, help them pay rent. And I take a slice of my pie and I give it to them. But then I still have this big chunk that I easily can donate, like I said, 50 to 100 to the nonprofit. And I can really maximize what I'm going to do. And my
Right.
goal with some of that too, once I'm, you know, finally in a good spot, what I plan on doing is every month I'm going to do a post on Warriors Next Adventure on the last day of the month. I'm going to say tag a nonprofit that has directly helped you, not something that you've heard of, something that has directly helped you. And the first of every month, I want to donate $1,000 to a small nonprofit,
Oh,
because
hell yeah. I love that.
$1,000 is a lot of money to some of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I know one nonprofit that he told me he raised like $4,000 last year. And I'm like, dude. So I helped him with his marketing strategies and everything else. And this year alone, he's already up to like $4,000. Right.
Hell
It's only
yeah.
been 2 months. So I'm like, hell yeah, good for you.
That's awesome.
But what I do is I share as much knowledge as I can. I truly believe in the thought that if you learn how to do something, it's your job to teach others, right?
Yeah.
I learned how to fix myself. It's my job to help other people do it. And I made it my job by creating a nonprofit. On top of that, the one thing that I'm not great at helping people with is financial literacy. So mainly because I'm not exactly where I want to be. Like I said, I pay my bills and I don't struggle, but I'm not to the point where I feel like I can teach others how to do it. I can
Right.
teach people how to start a business. I can teach people, how to focus your priorities. But other than that, I'm kind of stuck there. So my goal is to help in every aspect that veterans struggle with eventually. And the main things that I see with what I do is you got vets struggling with homelessness, mental health, relationship issues, and finances. Those are like the
Yeah.
4 main areas that I see, right?
Yep.
And let's group sexual military trauma, all of that into mental health. Obviously there's different levels, but those are the main things, right? In relationships, I can help with that too. I don't like to brag or talk too much about what I've done, but I've helped save 3 marriages now. Because these vets were really struggling. One of them, it was alcoholism. I helped him beat alcoholism, just by connecting him with the proper resources and then offering to be his, what do you call
Sponsor.
it? Yes. Offering to be a sponsor. I get calls all the time, 2, 3 a.m. and I'm always answering the call. I don't think I've ever missed a crisis call, so a lot of it is focusing on self, right? We are a non-religious organization. I'm not against religion at all. I personally am not religious. I don't, people hate when I say this, but I don't believe in God. My lack of belief is not me denying your belief of it. If you believe it exists, then it exists, right? I personally, with this nonprofit, we focus on self and you. And every single person that I talk to that is a Christian or is Jewish or Muslim, because we get people of all faiths that we help. The one thing I focus on them is everything that we talk about. I want you to take faith out of the picture, right? I'm not saying don't believe in it. I don't ever want anyone to think I'm saying that. But right now, with what we're working on at this moment, this is all about you, right? And your choices. And the one thing that I tell, especially to Christians, is think about it like this: God gave everybody, God gave everybody free will, correct? So
Yeah.
if you do nothing with God gave you, you're not going to get what you need, right? Faith is nothing without action. I still feel like no matter how much faith you have, you still have to provide action to the situation. Now, with a lot of these guys, the big focus is getting them to just take religion out of it just for a moment, right? Everything that you're going to learn with Warriors Next Adventure, think about it like this: whatever God you believe in, if you don't know who the fuck you are, how are you going to have a good relationship with your God?
Yeah, that's true.
It's very hard. It's very hard, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you take the time to focus on you and figure out who you are and figure out who you want to be, figure out your strengths and your weaknesses, and you start to build to teach yourself to become a better person, your relationship with your God is just going to get better. And it's going to be a lot less gimme, 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 and a lot more thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
And and like I said, I get hate on for people because I don't believe, and that's fine. I understand that, but there's a lot of nonprofits out there that only focus on religion, and there's a lot of vets that don't want that. And that's why I created this. And it's all about self-improvement, right? About you, the person, the individual. Whatever you add on to it, fantastic. I have no issues with it at all. The 3 guys that I rode the ocean with, they're very religious. And when we were in the life raft, they all locked hands to pray, and I'm not a dick. So I grabbed their hands and I prayed with them. And I've had, like, I told my dad about it, and he's like, I wouldn't have done that. I was like, yeah, you're a dick. We were dying and we didn't know if we were going to make it. So if that makes them more comfortable and I can offer that by holding their hands, I'm okay with that. But my goal and my drive in life is to never judge anybody, unless you're a pedophile. Then fuck you.
Yeah.
But no, I don't want to judge anybody for the life that they live, right? My thing is, as long as you're not hurting anybody or doing anything intentionally to hurt people, I think most people are innately good. But I think the problem with a lot of vets, we get stuck in the survivor's guilt, B, some of the things that have to be done overseas, you end up hating yourself for it. You end up hating the fact that you're alive and your buddy isn't.
Right.
And if you don't do the work and you don't try to figure out how you can accept the fact that that happened. Now, accepting something doesn't mean you think it's okay. I was severely abused as a child. It's not okay. It's not okay for any child to be abused. But I've accepted the fact that that was my life. That is no longer my life. I am now a version of myself that I decided to create. And I'm very happy with who I am. And it's taken a lot of work. You know, the big thing I get from a lot of vets is like, well, it's not that easy. I was like, I never fucking said it's easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Everything you're going to do on your healing journey is going to be hard, right? If healing was easy, everyone would be happy and nobody would be on drugs.
Yeah.
You know, and drugs, I mean like SSRIs, shit like that too. And you get a lot of the people that are so anti-drug that it's like, listen, these medications do help some people. I personally, and I'm okay with talking about it, I was on Prozac last year after my whole ocean roll debacle because I just could not snap out of it. I was on it for about 6 months and I finally started to feel great, you know, and going fishing with Steve helped a lot. Marcus Institute helped a lot. I started meditating a lot more. And those of you who are afraid of meditation or push it away, I think everybody should try it. And I don't mean once. I mean every day for a month.
Actually try it.
Yeah. And the thing that I teach people how to meditate. I do meditation hikes where we go for a hike, we find a spot, we sit and we meditate. And the way I explain meditation is think about it like this. And for the Christians out there, when you pray, meditation, it's the same thing. The only difference is who are you talking to? Right? When you pray, you're talking to God. When you meditate, you're going inside, you're talking to self, right? You're looking at yourself, you're listening to your subconscious. And the best way to meditate, in my opinion, now I'm not a friggin' guru. Like I said, I'm not a Buddhist or anything like that. But what I believe in is the best way to meditate is imagine yourself as a passenger in a car, right? You can't control the location. You can't control the destination. You can't control the direction. You can't control what goes by the window. All you can do is sit and observe, right? So the best way to do it is let go of trying to control everything. Don't not think about anything. Don't try to think about anything. Just sit and observe. Your subconscious is going to show you some shit that's going to cause some issues sometimes. I strongly urge anyone who's meditating to try not to run from that because your subconscious is showing you that for a reason. And usually that reason is because there's some unresolved traumas or something that you've never really worked on. And through meditation and many, many other things, I'm not saying meditation fixed me, but it helped me see some of the things that were really negatively affecting. And I went through a lot of meditation sessions where I come out of it fucking crying. And that's okay. There's some good days, some bad days. There's some meditations where I come out of it and I have a new understanding of who I want to be, or a new understanding of, this person did this to me because they were suffering. There's an old saying, hurt people hurt people. It's not okay, but when you learn to empathize with people that hurt you, it makes it a lot easier for you to forgive them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, and I'm not saying when you forgive something, you have to bring them back into your life. Like the first principle that we talk about all the time is, you have to look who you associate with. I talk about two different people. You got the black cloud and the shooting star. The black cloud is somebody who drains you, the energy vampires, the people that pull everything from you and give nothing. The people that cheer for you in front of your face, but talk down about you when you're not around. That's a black cloud. My black cloud was my mother. She was an alcoholic and she beat me quite a bit as well. She would get drunk and hit me and call me all kinds of different names. She was a pretty terrible person when I was growing up. On top of that, she married my stepdad, even though she knew that he was abusive. I watched him, one night throw her across the room and then grab me by the hair and drag me down the stairs. He would sit up on the desk and slap me around, and he was just a terrible person. One day, I was sitting downstairs and he came in the house and I went upstairs and he was crawling and he was bleeding everywhere. And he said, "Your mom's dead." And so I freak out. I was 9 years old at the time. So they were snowmobiling in the lake and he said they crashed into a snowbank. So I ran out to the lake. We lived right on a lake there. So I go down and I find the motorcycle upside down and it's smoking. And then I look and I saw my mom laying there, and she was dead. And I was a big fan of Rescue 911. You remember that show?
Yeah.
So like because of that show, I knew CPR and how to check for a pulse. So I checked her pulse, and there was nothing there. And so I pulled her helmet off, put her head in my lap, and I just started punching her chest because I've seen that in movies too. And she actually came back. She spit blood all over my face. I ran into the house because I understood shock. So I'm like, I got to get her a blanket. I got to call 911. So I go to grab the phone, and he tells me, if you call the cops, I'll fucking kill you. I'm like, okay. So I run downstairs, and we had an emergency phone because this guy was such a piece of shit. It happened often. So I call 911. I run back outside, put a blanket over her, and she almost passed out a few times, but I kept her up, slapping her in the face and stuff. And the ambulance got there. They took her to the hospital, and she died like 3 times on the operating table.
Oh,
she
damn.
broke every rib on her right side was broken. She punctured her lung in 2 spots. She lacerated her liver. She punctured her spleen. Her collarbone was broken, and there was a really odd fracture in the back of her skull. And they determined that, you know, she couldn't remember anything that happened, but they determined that he jumped on the back and he was punching her in the back of the head, and she crashed into the snowbank to try to kill him.
Oh,
And they
damn.
were probably going 60 miles an hour because that was a fast snowmobile. So my mom was in a body cast for 6 months, and I almost had to repeat the 6th grade because I missed so much school because I had to take care of her because he wouldn't do it. And I had to learn how to cook, which is one of those things where I had to reframe, right? I had to learn how to cook because he said cooking was for women and faggots. So what a piece of shit thing to say to a 9-year-old.
Yeah, that was a piece of shit. Yeah.
But on the plus side, I'm a fantastic cook now, right? Because I started cooking at 9 years old, and I never stopped. So, you know, you got to find the good and the negative.
Right.
6 months later, she got out of her body cast, and she dropped me off at my dad's house, and she never came back. She popped in and out of my life here and there. But every time she'd come around, she would drink. She would scream at me, talk shit at me, tell me I was a shitty father, all these things. And then in 2012, when I was getting out of the military, I was going through divorce because I, you know, found out about Jody. And she just destroyed me on Facebook, saying that my son's a worthless piece of shit. He's a pig. He's just like his father, blah, blah, just going off on all these things. And I'm like, why would you say that?
Damn.
I was like, do you even know what happened? So my ex-wife had called her and told her all these terrible things about me, which was exactly what she was doing, right? That I was cheating on her and all this. I'm like, I never cheated on you. I told you I wanted a divorce, and I wanted you to leave.
Right.
And she found out from a mutual friend, you know, I'm a single guy, you know, just going through a divorce on an Air Force base in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I'm going to do what a young man's going to do.
Right.
But somebody had saw me and told her and freaked out. And I'm like, yeah, I did. We're not together. I'm leaving you. And so she told my mom all this stuff. And then I explained to my mom what actually happened. She's like, oh, I didn't know. Never apologized, just walks away. I get back together with her because she ended up getting pregnant with my second kid. And 2015, after my suicide attempt, I decided I need to leave her because she's half my issues. So again, my mother, who I never see, goes on Facebook, tells everybody what a piece of shit I am and all this, blah, 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 blah. And I just block her, you know, and she ends up calling me a day later. She's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you psychotic? And I'm like, you trashed me and you don't even know what's happening. I was like, you know what? I'm no longer your son. I want nothing to do with you. And I cut my mom out of my life in 2015. About a year later, when I was really doing some work on myself, I was digging into forgiveness a lot. And I reached out to her and I'm like, you know what? I forgive you for everything you've done to me. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, that right there is the reason why I don't want you in my life anymore. I tell people all the time, there's that saying, you know, blood is thicker than water.
Right.
But the extended version of that saying is blood is thicker than water, but the waters, but the blood of the covenant is thicker than the waters of the womb, right? So we choose family, right? Blood only makes you related. Family is different, right? That's why the brotherhood of the military is so strong, is because we literally would die together, you know, and that's a pretty fucking strong bond to say that I would step in front of a bullet for this person. So I get people that question me on that a lot and say, like, you need to forgive your mom. I was like, I absolutely have forgiven my mom. I hope she's doing great. I know she lives with my sister. I know she's doing well. Great. Good enough. That's all that matters. I don't hate her. I'm not mad at her for anything she's done. I've truly forgiven her for everything. But I also understand that she is a black cloud and I need to keep her away from my life because she is poison. Right. It's unfortunate, but my stepmom, my dad remarried when I was like 4, and my stepmom is an angel. She's the best person in the world. Now, the shooting stars are people like my stepmom, my jujitsu coach. My jujitsu coach, Mark Mortensen, shout out to Tracks BJJ. Mark is like a father to me. I love him to death. I have a good relationship with my dad too, but Mark is a wonderful mentor. He's the reason why I've become who I am, because he is such a good person. Now, after my suicide attempt, Mark was my first call, and I called him, and I didn't tell him, but I just wanted to talk to him. And he's like, dude, where you been? Because I quit training jiu-jitsu because I was essentially showing all the signs of suicide.
Right.
I quit doing all the things I love. And I told him, I was like, because I knew he was going to Brazil. I'm like, can I go to Brazil with you to like train with you and watch you? He's like, yes, absolutely. Me and him are really good friends, even though he's my black belt. Like, me and him are really good friends. I love the guy to death. We go to his house and watch UFC fights together and shit. I love the guy. And he's helped mold me into who I am today, right? I've never heard him ever say a bad thing about me. Every time I meet people, I say, yeah, I train with Mark. Like, oh yeah, I know, he speaks very highly of you. That's a shooting star. The person who's a cheerleader behind your back, someone who will call you fuckface to your face, but say, hey, that's a great guy behind your back.
Yep.
Usually that's the veteran communication for the most part.
Yes, sir. I agree.
But the big thing is, most people have so many black clouds around them and they don't even know it. Right?
Yeah.
When you start to reevaluate your life and you start to see like, oh, this person is toxic, right? The guy that's giving you cocaine on the weekends, the guy that's drinking with you constantly. And I'm not saying to immediately cut these people out of your life. Give them a chance. Tell them, hey, listen, you are a negative influence on me and I want to change. And in order for me to change, this needs to stop. If they tell you to go fuck yourself, you know what you need to do, right? Cut that person out.
See you later. Yeah.
One of the hardest but most rewarding things you can do is cut a toxic person out of your life.
Yeah, that has happened recently. Let's just say I've done that a couple of times here recently, and it was for the better. I mean, unfortunately, I still wish them nothing but best things, going on forward in life. But for me, cutting them out of my life because they were negative, or the impact that they were having was a negative impact towards me in my life. It was just better for me just say, all right, see you later. I'm done with you. I don't want to have nothing to do with you, and just gone. But yeah, and I'm kind of similar background story like you. When I was younger, my mom and her boyfriend, he was very abusive to us as well. And so I didn't have a really great childhood growing up. I didn't have a bad childhood, but there was days where, he'd take a belt to my ass and beat me 25 times with a belt, or smash my head into a screen door and make blood. I got scars from that. And, I was probably 13 or 14 when mom decided to finally leave that situation. Now, mom's never been, an alcoholic per se. She's a big supporter of mine. Of course, we lost my brother in '94. He was 10 years old, died of cancer in '94. I was 15 at the time, and I don't think I've ever been. Thank you. I don't think I've ever been quite the same as I was before. Seeing your brother laying there on the floor, blue in the face, not being able to breathe and stuff, and it's been hard. But mom's always been there. My dad, unfortunately, he was an absentee father. He'd come in, see us for a weekend, then disappear for 2 years, 3 years, and then I'd see him again, and then he'd disappear. And he always says, "Oh, I'll come get you next weekend," and then you're waiting at the door or window, waiting for him to pull up, and it never happens. So that helped mold me into who I am today. Like, my kids, I'm here for my kids always. I mean, they're right upstairs right now, and I'm always here for them. I've never whooped them with a belt. Never. I spanked them when they were younger with my hand on their bottom when they were doing something they wasn't supposed to do, but I've never whooped them with the belt, and I never will, just because I know what I went through, and I don't want my kids to go through that.
Yeah. That's called breaking the generational trauma.
Yeah. So, and I joined the Marine Corps to get away from everything that was going on. I was going down the wrong path. Like, literally, I was in with 2nd Battalion 8th Marines, and 6 of my buddies, 6 months after I left, went to prison. that's the route that I was going. So I was like, I was smart. I got out. I was like, no, I need to get rid of the toxicity and the black cloud, like you said, get rid of those people. And then, I've been forging forward ever since. So, and now, my wife, granted, she'll tell people, oh, I don't watch this podcast. I don't support him. She's lying. She does. JR can vouch for that. My wife is amazing. She's my rock. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, when I met her, my credit score was like 300. I mean, as low as I didn't even have a credit score. And now my credit score's wherever it is, it's up there. And, we got a good house. We make good money. I got a brand new truck. She's got a brand new car. And my kids are 4.0 students. I can't be much, and my oldest is law enforcement. So she's for school, the school, she's in dual credit classes. And her career path is law enforcement. And literally, she's a 4.0 student. She does archery. She's an academic archer for her school. She can shoot a rifle with right-handed or left. She's so ambidextrous on both, and she shoots better than I do. And I'm a pretty good shot, but she shoots better than I do. And then my youngest, straight A student, she's on the speech and debate team. She's on the yearbook staff at her school. So they're amazing kid. And I can't say, anything negative about anything that they do other than the attitudes that they show mom and dad sometimes, which they're teenagers. They're going to have attitude.
Yeah.
But, and both of them plan on going into the military. And so my oldest, like I said, she wants to be an FBI agent when she gets out of college.
Awesome.
So I told her, I said, look, here's your route. This is going to be your easiest route. Go as soon as you get out of high school, go as an officer in the Air Force. But while you're doing that, they're going to send you to college first. Once you get done with your college, you'll go into the Air Force, do your stint there. While you're doing that, make sure you're top of the class at everything. The FBI, CIA, DEA, ATF, they're all going to be come knocking on your door recruiting you.
I like how you said Air Force too.
Yeah, I suggested Air Force. But not Marines, because Marines, you're not going to go to the FBI for the Marines. I mean, you can, but it's pretty hard. And then my youngest, she wants to be a medic, but she also wants to be a high school history teacher. So I told her, I said, look, you can either go Army medics or you can go in the Navy and be a corpsman. I said, depending on what you want to do. I said, so that's your option. I know the Air Force has medics, but I think they
don't do as much as like corpsmen and stuff. Like we have them, but they're, we have them on base. We almost never took Air Force medics with us. It was almost always an Army medic.
Right. And so I told her, I said, look, you go Army or Navy. Of course, she wants to be around Marines, and I'm like, you don't want to be around Marines, or we're a bunch of shit faces. So I told her,
That's why you have kids at a young age.
Yeah. Well, no. So I'm 45 and they're 17 and 15. So I was a little bit older when I had kids. I was kind of smart in that aspect. Well, of course, that goes back to my wife. So she's 5 years younger than I am. And she's like, we ain't having kids until we get married and I'm out of college. So, and that was 2007 when I had my first one. So
nice.
But man, I tell you what, we've been on here for 2 hours and 32 minutes, and I probably could talk to you for another 2 hours probably. So we're definitely going to have you back on for another episode because it's getting late here on my end and my dogs are going ape shit up there. So
no worries. I'm pretty sure my kids in there strangling the cat right now, so I should probably check that out.
Probably. Carl, I know you're on here. You're a combat medic. What is the name of your nonprofit? I don't know if you've seen that earlier in because you said something about your nonprofit, and that's what we focus on is nonprofits here on Homefront Sit Rep. So,
but Carl's a good dude. I know he's over in Ohio, I believe.
Well, that's not too. I'm 70 miles from Lexington, and probably another 20 minutes north to Ohio. So, back.
Yeah, they do a sweet car show, dude. Like they have so many people come on. I was supposed to actually go out and set up a booth. We had another event coming on and I couldn't go, but he's a great dude. I had him on my podcast. I think it was on Veterans Action Report. I don't remember. But
Nice.
great dude, great nonprofit. Highly recommend interviewing him. Super good
Hell yeah.
conversation too. So,
Hey, Carl, send me an email. Hold on real quick. Carl, send me an email at homefrontsitrep@gmail.com, and I'll get you on the show. Sorry about that, Nick.
how far from Cincinnati are you guys?
So Cincinnati's about about 90 miles.
90 miles.
About 90 miles. So about 2 hours, probably two and a half hours.
March 16th, I'm going to the it's called the Exploring with Grace race. It's a 5K in the morning. And then what we do is, I give a speech. I think there's like 400 or 500 people there. And there's 2 other nonprofits that give a speech. Then we run a 5K. And then afterwards, there's like an after party at one of the local bars there. And we all kind of just hang out, talk.
Nice.
Grace was a phenomenal woman. She was only 17 years old, or she was 18 when she took her own life. But sad story. But I mean, it's a good event. And we raise a lot of money. And then Saturday night on March 16th, I'm actually performing at the Bombs Away Comedy. I got a guest spot on one of the comedy shows there too. So if you guys want to come up, make a day out of it, be nice to sit and chat with you. We'll have plenty of time.
Definitely.
So
definitely. We'll have to look into our schedule and see what we got. You said March 16th?
Yes.
Yep.
Let me check real quick.
We're supposed to do a jiu-jitsu seminar at Gracie, Cincinnati. I got to talk to Randall and get that figured out. But what we do when we do our jiu-jitsu seminars, they're always a free seminar. So they don't cost any money. I don't charge or anything like that. We do donations and stuff if people want to. But what we do is we try to focus on all the veterans that are local in that area that don't train jiu-jitsu. So we try to get as many veterans to come in to try jiu-jitsu. And then what we do with our nonprofit, with our jiu-jitsu program, if you're a vet, you want to try jiu-jitsu, what we'll do is we'll buy your first gi, which is usually about $120, and then we pay for your first month of jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
If you're 80% or more disabled, there's a nonprofit called We Defy Foundation. If you're 80% or more disabled, We Defy Foundation will pay for a full year scholarship of jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
So if you're 80% or more, you want to try jiu-jitsu, go to We Defy Foundation, click on the athlete section and apply. You have to make a video of why jiu-jitsu would be helpful to you. If you mention Warriors Next Adventure in your video, you'll pretty much guaranteed get a slot. I think I've gotten 75 veterans their scholarship. But yeah, so it's great talking to you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find us too. If you just Google Warriors Next Adventure, we got tons of videos and all of our social medias on there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're gonna have you on. We're gonna talk offline, but the tip of the spear that we do, if you want to jump in on, collabing with that, we'll have you on as a guest podcast host on there, if you're interested. So
100%, man.
we can talk offline on that. So, but yeah, man, thank you for coming on here and spending this 2 hours and 30 some minutes with us, and just giving information about what you do and your experience and your journey in life. I mean, it's hard to talk about, hey, I almost committed suicide at one time in my life. And, I think people resonate with that because a lot of veterans, have thought about committing suicide. There's a lot of them out there. And then unfortunately, they say 22 a day. And I'm using the air quotes there because it's more than 22, because it's more like 40 something that are not reported, to the VA. So
a lot of them, they say, especially if there's drug overdose, they don't technically count that as a suicide,
right?
Which is ridiculous.
Right. So yeah, man, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with us and hanging out with us. And like I said, I'm definitely gonna have you back on because I can probably talk to you for another 2 hours.
Chucky's making an appearance. She's about to punch me in a second.
She's probably like, "Let's go, Dad."
That's awesome.
Yeah. She wants food. That's all she wants. I'm just a glorified snack bitch these days. So
there you go. There you go. There you go.
Hold on, buddy. Give me a minute.
All right, buddy. Well, I'm gonna let you get off and take care of that youngin there, and we will be talking soon, my friend.
Of course, man. Thanks again for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Dude, how cool was that? Thanks, Carl. Man, that was cool, wasn't it?
That's an interesting story. I think there's a lot of people that would benefit from that expertise that's been developed over time and been honed to where it's a true need, and there's a lot of people that could benefit from that. Even just starting the conversation is important.
Oh yeah, and like I said, man, a lot of people don't realize, like, the more you tell your story, you're helping them, but you're also helping yourself. And like for me, I didn't tell my story for a really long time, like some of the stuff that I've seen, some of the stuff that I've done. And even still to this day, my wife, after 20 plus years of being together, she's still finding out stuff about me now. And it's just like, the more I talk about it, the easier it gets. But like this dude here, he's helped, I think, 26 nonprofits he helped start, get off the ground. And then he helps veterans with, starting their LLC if they need help with getting the LLC started. He does that. He does the jiu-jitsu program. He does the race car driving program. Just go to their website, Warriors Next Adventure, and check out what they do, because or just Google Warriors Next Adventure, and you'll see everything that pops up. I mean, like you said, he's not a guru at it. He's just naturally gifted at, helping veterans get through the problems that they've seen. And like doing this podcast, I've seen so many different issues when it comes to veterans. And, he's built a program, uh, like he said, with his ambassador program from when he was on a police department, on a state trooper, that, they had a scenario situation and how you would deal with it. He's built a thing for that. And it's just like, bro, that's amazing with, when you're dealing with crisis and stuff like that. Cause like if I call you at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Hey, JR, of course I'm drunk," and I'm saying, "Bro, I'm about to kill myself," you wouldn't know how to handle that situation, or I wouldn't know how to handle that
Right.
situation. But this guy, he's already got a program for that, and it's just like, dude. Yeah, I would agree with you, Carl. Nick is a great dude, man. He is a great dude, and it was an honor to have him on the podcast and
Yes.
and tell his story. I mean, hell, he survived almost dying in the ocean.
Mhm.
And then, he still got the resiliency to carry on that mission and help and want to help people. And he said he's had a couple step backs, and he just marched forward. I mean, that right there tells you that he's very resilient in his mission.
All right.
So, I mean, it's amazing. It's just, yeah, I'm definitely going to recommend a lot of people. So,
Yeah, he's worked through it multiple times, and hell, half of us, 90% of us, can't even take that first step to coming back from a trauma or a
yeah,
scenario like, or a situation like that.
yeah. I mean, it's like kind of like my buddy James Thornton, who was a Somalia vet, Mo vet, and you know, when he came back from his first deployment, he had to bury his daughter, went through a divorce,
Mhm.
and then he started drinking real heavy, and then he got cancer, his mom got cancer, and his dad got cancer, or his brother, dad or brother, somebody. There was three of them in his family that had cancer at the same
Mhm.
time. He wound up beating cancer, and he started drinking heavy again, and then he got custody of his kids and started drinking. He was drinking still pretty heavily at the time, and like he says it best, man. He said, I finally woke up and I had to pull my own head out of my own ass.
Yeah.
And now he's an ambassador for Warrior Rounds, and Warrior Rounds. If you haven't checked out Warrior Rounds, go to warriorrounds.com. And what they do is they take veterans and pair them with singer songwriters, and we're talking Grammy award winning singer songwriters like Bobby E. Boyd, who was James's partner with his song that they wrote about him. And the dude, it's an amazing program. So there's just a lot of great people out there doing great things, and Nick is another cog in that wheel.
Yeah.
Where he didn't reinvent the wheel, but he's another cog in the wheel that's helping. And it's just, man, it's awesome.
And also a really good facilitator of resources.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is the key is working together. If you're an organization out there and you don't want to work with another organization, it's not going to work. You're not going to help eliminate the problem. So
Right.
you definitely have to want to work together. So, but anyhow, it's been 2 hours and 45
Yes.
minutes, and it's time to wrap up the show. And like I said, like I always say, man, when you're out there and you're talking with a vet, ask them how they're doing, and then look in their eyes when they answer you, because more than likely they're going to say, I'm fine. But you have to ask the next hard question. How are you really doing? Because that's when the vet's going to open up. Because if you ask them, hey, I'm fine, you just leave it, just as that, they're not going to open up to you. But then that's when you stop them and say, hey, how are you really doing? Because then they're going to open up to you, because they might be having a shit day and they might be getting ready to go commit suicide. But all you got to do is stop and ask them how they're really doing. And that might stop them from committing suicide. So you got to ask that next hard question. And then, like I always say, stay safe out there. And I got your 6. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.
Suggestions and comments are always welcome.
Cannot wait to have another great show with y'all.
Don't forget you can find Homefront SitRep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Stay safe out there. I got your 6.